All right, we're going to have 3 public hearings here tonight. Imagine everybody is pretty much here for the first public hearing. So we're going to call over the Joint Plan Commission and Town Board of Supervisors public hearings, followed by the regular Plan Commission meeting tonight at the Lisbon Town Hall, Thursday, November 14th, 2019 at 6:32 p.m. Roll call, please, Jane.
Joe Osterman.
Here.
Becky Plotecker.
Here.
Ed Nelson.
Here.
Mark Meyer.
Here.
Jane Stadler. Here. Brian Oliphant. Absent excused. Chad Szymanski.
Here.
Dan Lindstrom.
Here.
Dan Green.
Here.
And Kathy Gutenkunst.
Thank you, Jane. Notice was given that a joint public hearing will be conducted by the Lisbon Town Board of Supervisors and the Plan Commission on Thursday, November 14th, 2019, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Town of Lisbon Town Hall, to consider a proposed amendment to the Town of Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan 2035. The purpose of the public hearing is to accept public comments on the proposed amendment. An application has been filed by Jim Forrester for the property owned by Rightway Bus LLC, requesting an amendment to the land use plan map adopted as part of the Town Comprehensive Development Plan. The application requests that the land use plan map be amended from rural density and other agricultural lands to low density residential for the property located at North 95 West 23759 County Line Road. Tax key LSBT 0150.997. The other open lands to be preserved will not be changed, and this was rescheduled from the October 10th meeting. All right, anybody who'd like to speak tonight, I ask if you step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. And I just go off of hands. I'll try to keep you in the...
I guess that was the first guy that signed the list. They have a list back there, correct?
Sure, you can, sometimes people speak, sometimes they don't. If you can just come on, do we grab the list already or no? We'll grab it, but if you just come on up and state your name and address.
Right to the podium?
Yep, if you would, please.
All right, my name is Mike Kinlan, and I live at N94W23633 Hermitage Drive. I lived there for approximately 43 years. This is the first meeting I've ever been to. So, my main concern about this subdivision is water drainage. Your concept plan shows a 30-foot wide drainage easement along the entire east side of the proposed subdivision with a water outlet. This drainage easement goes to Hyde Park Drive. There is a steel culvert under Mount Vernon Drive at Hyde Park Drive. The water drainage from this culvert runs east along the backside of my property, then into the wetlands which borders the southeast corner of my property. Some of us have a serious problem with our groundwater level. We don't have a normal standard sump pump. We have multiple pumps, some with a 2-inch discharge. And once they start pumping, when the groundwater table rises, they run continuously for days until the water table resides. If this new subdivision could fix or make our water problem better, I would definitely be in favor of it. But if you cannot guarantee me this, and I am definitely against this subdivision. And if this new subdivision does get approved, and my water problem worsens, I will definitely be seeking legal advice.
The land use amendment, are you in favor or against the land use amendment?
I said right here, if you cannot guarantee me, this will.
Well, so we have the land use amendment, and then the subdivision is another one. It's
Right,
kind of
like I
right.
say,
You're just not in favor of period if the water is going to get
well,
worse.
right. I'm concerned that my problem is going to get a lot. If it gets worse, because you got that easement, and that water, it's going to drain through my property, and that's going to make that wetlands rise.
Okay.
And that's what I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Because I can see when, once it goes into wetland, it doesn't leak. Sometimes it looks like I got lakefront property back there. That's what I'm concerned about. If this could fix my problem, I'd definitely be for it, but I don't think it will. The water's gonna be draining down.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you, sir. Who'd like to go next?
Anthony Valoria. I reside at North 95, West 23853. The town of Lisbon has stated that their vision is to follow the comprehensive land use plan. For this piece of land being developed, that vision is to keep that land rural density, which is 5 or more acre lots. If the town is willing to change their vision for this piece of property, what will it look like for others surrounding hundreds of acres of farm fields for the future? While I understand there is an existing low-density residential subdivision to the east of this property, the majority of the property to the south and west is zoned rural density. If the town of Lisbon allows for a zoning change on this piece of rural density property, it will set precedent for the other pieces of rural density properties to be rezoned as well. And when this happens, where will it stop? I'm worried about how having smaller properties in this area will affect the rural small town atmosphere that the town of Lisbon has prided itself on. I'm also concerned that changing the plan to low density residential will have negative side effects on our property, the shoreland, and the Bark River, and ultimately the town itself. Will the town be able to prove that there will be no negative impact on the roadways, schools, the Bark River, the wells, the shorelands with this type of development? The town of Lisbon should remain consistent with the community's comprehensive plan and keep the property zone as rural density. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sir, what street did you live on?
Highway Q.
Highway Q, thank you.
My name is Lisa Otis, Oddis. I live at W220N9359 Town Line Road. I'm against this plan. I feel that we developed as a town, put together the comprehensive plan that we used as a long-range planning vehicle. And I agree with the gentleman that just spoke that if we are going to amend that plan for this piece of property, that does set precedents for other pieces of property, other requests that come in. And I'm strongly against that type of development, but also against changing something that we've put in place already. And without a lot of, I found out about this proposed amendment, both pieces, through Nextdoor website. Did not know anything about it because I'm not an adjacent property owner, but I am part of the town of Lisbon, and I've been a resident over 20 years. And I'm also a member of an organization called the Wild Ones, national not-for-profit organization that works to protect native habitats. And right now in the town of Lisbon, we have wonderful native habitats. The wetlands, the first gentleman that spoke, are our natural drain fields. And to build on wetlands destroys that natural protection, also makes problems for those homeowners because water is still going to drain into those areas. That's how our land is contoured. So loss of protection from drainage problems, flooding problems, loss of native habitat, which is so essential. The area you're talking about, while there are farm fields, there are also corridors of woodlands that have unbelievable native plants there at this time. The area, I live just north of Conservancy zoned land on Town Line Road. I've walked into that Conservancy land, which is pretty much a swamp, though there is a river that goes through there. It's packed with native plants and trees. And those areas are so vital for our community to continue to support the native world. And our residents enjoy these characteristics of the town of Lisbon. So continued construction, building into wetlands, destroying these areas just does not make sense to me. So I am definitely against the development of that land and the amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
Scott and Robin Radke. We live on North 95, West 23787, County Line Road, just adjacent to the property that we're speaking of, and it also borders on the north end of it. I canvassed the neighborhood and put out flyers and things and got the feeling that most people are against this situation, but we're also concerned about how this all came about. If it was agricultural, zoned for agricultural from till 2035, how did this jump to this many years earlier? We don't get that. We're concerned, there's a lot of concerns. A lot of the people have different concerns, the water table, schools, the aesthetics, property taxes, increased traffic that's going to filter out on the County Line Road from North and Mount Vernon. It's terrible now, and we can only imagine what it's going to be like if this goes through. The traffic for the construction of these units, day to day after completion. So we're definitely against it. My wife and I were worried that actually the property right next to us that has the for sale sign would be used for an entrance and exit. And I was assured that that wasn't going to happen, which was our worst nightmare, but the aesthetics of that field is just too important for us to lose. So we're against it.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
Hello, my name is Sarah Valoria, and my address is North 95, West 23853, County Line Road. I oppose to the land use map being amended from rural density to low density. The town of Lisbon has a comprehensive land use plan that is supposed to remain in effect until 2035, and this plan is here for a reason. It's to allow the community to plan development in a way that protects valued resources and preserve those resources from destruction by inappropriate development. Waukesha County and the Wisconsin Department of Administration has agreed with this land use plan, as Lisbon's land uses in general are not compact. The town of Lisbon has a history of not following the density recommendations and maintaining a rural density residential area, and has been farther from compliance in comparison to other Waukesha County towns. If the town allows for this rezoning change, it will be an example of the town not trying to follow a plan in order to protect its land and resources, and instead allowing for more and more small plot developments. The town of Lisbon has stated that its long-range plan for parks and open spaces is to add additional parks in the north part of Lisbon and to preserve the lands along the Burke River. If the town allows for low-density rezoning, they would be doing the opposite of that. The Burke River is a significant environmental feature of the town and should be protected. And while I understand that we cannot stop development from occurring, for the town to allow a change from rural density of 5-acre or more plots to low-density plots, which could be as small as 20,000 square feet, is a huge discrepancy. There's been no mention of meeting in the middle and rezoning to suburban 1 or 2 density, which would allow for plots to be slightly larger and offer more green space and open lands. So I'm hoping the town board will be concerned with preserving what it has for its current tax-paying and voting residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to?
Hello. Don and Kurt Hockerman, North 95, West 23719 Hermitage Drive. We're on Lot 4 Presidential Estates, and we do adjoin the field. We are opposed to this rezoning as well. The comprehensive plan was created with the intention of keeping the town of Lisbon a small community and a small town feel, and we've strived to continue that as the years progressed. we have fought to stay an independent township for so long, even with annexing land to Sussex and some of our other communities, in order for us to sustain this township that we've had all along. I've lived here 35 years. It's a great place to live. I think that we do not need to grow any larger than what the plan had outlined originally. I think based on your website numbers, we're at about 10,000 for the township, give or take. And that's right in line with the growth plan that was outlined in the 2035 plan as well. To open up for more housing to go in there, to change the zoning, it doesn't make sense. And I still think the landowner or the new landowner can make it work on 5-acre parcels. If this changes and we continue to grow at this, who's going to pay for the full-time fire, police, and that we're going to need? Because right now we're all still volunteer and part-time, right?
No, full-time.
No full-time?
We have full-time.
Okay, and the police yet?
Full-time, 24/7.
But that's through Waukesha Sheriff, right?
Right, we contract with them.
Okay, so what's going to happen then?
I'm
So again, we are opposed for many reasons. The others have stated the wells, the tables. The Bark River is important to that community and that area. Our wells are fed by that as well. I don't think we need the additional housing as well.
Thank you. Would like to go next?
Jeff and Jody Elner, North 91, West 241, 92, Crooked Bridge Court. We came out discussed this in opposition to the plan to change from the current to the 1.5 or 1.4 to 20,000 square feet. Every time I hear that and I see that kind of number, I look at where Arrow Park used to be. You see these great big houses, these great big McMansions on these little teeny tiny lots, and it really looks stupid. To call a spade, it really looks dumb. It looks like they just plop these things down and kind of willy-nilly, and you know. So that's one concern. My other concern is, you know, it's how many more houses you can have sucking out of that aquifer. You know, is somebody going to come and write me a check when I got to drop my well pump down an extra 50, 100 feet? Who knows? Has there been a study done on what it's going to do to the groundwater? You know, nobody seems to know how to answer that question yet. And again, traffic, schools. I mean, if you make the lots smaller, you bring in smaller pricing. The higher the price, not going to say the better the people, but it seems like low-income housing is crime follows low-income housing. Not that this is going to be low-income housing, but you know, you want to keep it a nice rural town. Sorry, I'm trying to hit my wife. But again, I wouldn't be completely opposed to rezoning, because the subdivisions in the other area around it, like where Mount Vernon is, and in our subdivision, the minimum lot size is 1.5 to 3 acres. So, but that's according to the map that I've got. Okay. That's what it was zoned as.
The subdivision just to the east actually has 7/10 of an acre lots.
Oh, wow.
Some of them. It actually varies quite a bit.
Okay, well, again, that was done how many years ago?
Sure.
My subdivision, I think the smallest one is 1.3 acres, and that was because it was kind of a wedged in. So.
Sure.
But everybody else, I mean, everything else in the area has got nice big lots until you get to Sussex and until you get to the stuff, you know, on the south side, again, by where Arrow Park used to be.
I just want to throw, usually we don't answer questions right now, I answered a couple, but just so you know, the proposed, this is different from what we're talking about here, but the proposed subdivision is actually 1 acre density. It's
Right.
actually 1.25, I believe, is the density, but the lot sizes are going to be 1 acre.
Right.
So it's not conservation subdivision, it's nothing like that. Now, that hasn't been talked about yet. This is the first time we all have a chance to talk about this, is here tonight. So this isn't like a done deal by any means. This is the first time we all have a chance to talk about this here. So,
Okay, well, like I said, I wouldn't be completely opposed to developing it, provided to keep the density down. You know, 1 acre, you know, granted, okay, you got 7/10 of an acre to the east of that, but those are a lot older homes. Going forward, we have this plan, and then why not stick with it? I mean, why change it? I mean, you got all these people here that are opposed to it. Who does it benefit? Besides some big dollar developer that comes in, not a resident of the area or a taxpayer, unless, you know. So, anyway, I'm not a very good public speaker in my truck driver.
You did just fine. You
That's
did
all
good.
right.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
I'll be very brief. Eric Schmidt, N88W24240 North Lisbon Road. We are opposed to the land use change amendment. We moved out here 4 years ago from the city of Brookfield for this rural setting. Definitely not against development, but would like to keep it to the low density 5 acre allotment. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next?
Sue and John Miller, North 87, West 24189, North Lisbon Road. I'd like to go on record that we are also opposed to the change in the density. We've been here now 20 years, and we came because we found a gem in Waukesha County where land was allowed to be natural, where development was planned with that natural, conservation in mind. Living on North Lisbon Road, the traffic that has already been increased based on development and the speed limits on that road, it's not safe to walk for kids to chase a ball down their driveway. Just when there was already the change for any construction, when it's all diverted down North Lisbon Road, the idea that more traffic is going to come down North Road and go speeding past on North Lisbon Road are things that I really believe the board needs to take into consideration, as well as the other items that people have brought up as well tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Anybody like to go next?
Hi, I am Melissa Fenninger. I live at N91W24201 Crooked Bridge Court. I agree with what everybody has said here tonight. I moved out here 17 years ago because I wanted to get my daughter out of the city. I didn't like looking at all of the houses, driving through all of the neighborhoods full of houses. I love the aesthetics of our community. I love our community as it is. I completely oppose this. We've already had more traffic down North Road since Colgate Road got closed. People are diverted down North Road. I'm concerned about my well. I'm concerned about the fact that the area is changing with Sussex growing, with Menominee Falls growing. The Egg Shack had their cash box broken into. The vegetable stand on 164 and Highway Q. I'm concerned that bringing more homes into this area is going to bring more people and potentially more crime too. The more people you have in an area, the more potential you have for bringing bad things. I like the rural area that we live in, and I don't want to see that change. So I'm opposed to this. Thank you.
Dan Fisher, West 265 and 6995, Thousand Oaks Drive. I'd like to go on record as being opposed to this rezoning. I think if you're going to rezone land, you should do it as part of the comprehensive plan and do an overall look at everything, not do a piecemeal rezoning. I wasn't happy when you did Arnwood Conservancy to smaller lot sizes on Lake 5 Road, Highway VV. It seems fine now, but the trend seems to keep going to smaller and smaller lots, and once you get one, and how are you going to tell the next developer, well, you let them do it, how can you keep us doing it? I feel that most people that moved to Lisbon did so because they liked the larger lot sizes, and I don't see a need to change that. If you want smaller lot sizes, there's plenty of communities around here you can go to and do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
I'm Dale and John Noyens. We live on North 88 West 24944 North Lisbon Road, and we are both against this rezoning. We like the bigger lot sizes, the traffic on North Lisbon Road
as she stated, was awful when 164 was being redone. Almost all the traffic came down Hillside Road, which then many people found out they could go down North Lisbon Road to North Road, and the people speed down that road already. We don't need more traffic, and I agree with Bark River is just an asset to this community.
Thank you.
We are opposed.
Thank you. Would anyone like to go next?
Good evening.
How you doing?
I apologize right away. I do have a cough. I gotta go to the doctor afterwards for it. My name is AJ Ludwig. I live on N90W24279 Crooked Bridge Drive. And earlier this year, I shared a lot of concerns, especially the well concerns. I was a well guy, and I was dropping wells out here like crazy with the change in the water level. My other concern is speeding and people running stop signs. I travel down this road twice a day, and there isn't a time that I come down here where people aren't right on my bumper or running the stop signs without even stopping. Same with up there on North Lisbon and North Road. I pull out of my subdivision on, in the morning on the North Road, and there isn't a time where all of a sudden there's a car right behind me. Just this morning, I was on my way to US Cellular in Germantown, and as soon as I got out of Colgate, somebody pulled out right in front of me. I drive a 10,000-pound truck that cannot stop on a dime, and people don't seem to understand that. And I can see you're laughing, but honestly, if that was you, I don't want to hit somebody.
She's agreeing with you.
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, she's agreeing
I don't
with you.
want to
She's
hit
not
somebody
laughing at you.
because that's not going to be, nice. I have to live with that if somebody gets injured. The other concern I have is just repeating myself that, speeding, people trying to walk. I walked down that street before. I've almost been hit by a car quite a few times. I see people, drag racing on North Road. I don't like that. My old neighbors were almost hit head on by drag racers. And with the crime rates, we already have people going through. I've had people rummage through my truck in the middle of the night. I used to be able to keep my doors unlocked, but now I can't. Mm-hmm. I can't leave anything out in my driveway anymore without it being rummaged through. And I live on a dead-end road, The other thing is, too, I moved out here 10 years ago. My family's been out here since 94, 95, I want to say. And if I wanted to look at something that looked like Milwaukee, I'd just move back to Milwaukee. Unfortunately, for most of these people here, they can't just pick up and move. They got mortgages, they got family, they got bills. Luckily for me, I can move whenever I want to. But, what about these people? I'm pretty sure most of these people are against it. So, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Anyone else would like to speak tonight on this public hearing? I'm going to do a last call for this public hearing. This is your chance. I'm going to have one more open. There's going to be another comments section when we start the Plan Commission meeting. But once the meeting starts with the board, we do keep the meeting here at the table. So this is your chance to make comments, which we're writing them all down. We're going to address them. So if you'd like to speak, this is your chance now. Okay.
My name is Lori Laubenheimer, West 237, North 9333, Monticello Drive. We are opposed to this mainly for two reasons. The first one is the wells, what this could do to our wells, and what kind of testing you can do to ensure that we will not have issues with our wells. And my second concern is safety. This morning, I timed it. I sat on coming out of Monticello Drive onto Q. I sat for 10 minutes before I could turn right onto Q. So I'm very concerned about safety, the traffic. I can't even turn left. I should be turning left to go to work, and I can't. I'd sit there for 20 minutes at least. And if there's a train, I can sit there for 20 minutes. So additional traffic is just not a good idea for safety and for our patients. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mary Jo Lurch, North 88, West 23462, North Lisbon Road. We are against the proposal. It's a 2035 plan to stay with the height, with the density of the 5-acre parcels, and that's what I'd like to see them do.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi,
How you doing?
Sarah Bastian, W229N9414, Colgate Road. And I agree with the lady because I'm on Colgate Road, so the only exit I have is Highway Q. And it's hard in the morning to just drive my children to school because I can't get out. And then, like she said, you're stuck with the train. And my kids can easily, they're 6 and 8, have an hour-long bus ride to and from school. And if you add that many more families, I mean, at 6 years old, an hour-long bus ride is too long. Even at 8, even at 38 years old, sitting on a bus for an hour is way too long.
Might be worse.
Yeah. So I think it's just really tough to, all the traffic, and then the people who do stay through Colgate. You know, it's 35, and I can't get out because there's just enough gapping. So I think it'll just increase and not be good, and of course what everybody else said. So I'm opposed to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim McCarty. I'm from W237N9477 Mount Vernon Drive. And my property does hit against that. They want that area. But my concern is that I walk my dog every day. And I've seen people on North Road walk their dogs. I can't see how they could do that with the traffic that runs back and forth and everything. Even in our neighborhood too, it's kind of dangerous. Is sometimes people just don't pay attention. So my concern is even with kids, dogs, or just us adults walking, even elderly that walk through it. I'm just very concerned too much traffic goes through. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Are you considering taking any votes here tonight for the people who choose not to talk?
It's a possibility. Yeah, I can't say, like I said, this is our first crack at it right now, so.
Okay.
What is the deadline for your decision, or do you have a timeline? You do not.
I'm gonna have to have you come on up because we're actually on TV tonight.
Oh, okay. My question is.
Could you just state your name again real quick?
Dawn Hockerman.
Thank you.
Okay, my question is there a referendum that we can pose to the town of Lisbon as a whole to find out if they want this rezoning? You know, our whole thing is that we wanted to stay this gem in the rough. And we moved here for that reason. We have the foundation of the small town values that have held to us. We're profitable more so than Sussex in this huge community, as if you look at our bottom line as town of Lisbon and what we've been able to ascertain versus becoming a Sussex with wall-to-wall housing, not having this dense population and having this debt. Is there a way that you can open this up to a larger forum for the people that can't make it after work and have lives and commitments that didn't even know that this one parcel of land affected so many different people? You're looking at the people that just touch base here, not as a whole as to what we're trying to do with Town of Lisbon with this whole comprehensive 2035 plan.
Okay. Anyone else?
Lisa Otis, and I just wanted to, yeah, for the record, that is so true. I mean, why not do a referendum? Let's find out what your constituents actually want. And I hope anyone here that has an opinion, whether it's positive or negative, that we voice it, because if you don't know what we want, and then things get non-transparent, and I'm sure none of us want that to happen in our community. We have a nice, small, tightly knit community, and a lot of people that appreciate what we do have here. And also we appreciate the balanced budget every year. It's been great.
1 cent this year.
1
cent per thousand this year.
Yeah.
That meeting was last night. There was one person here.
Really?
That was directly related to your taxes, and everyone has a chance to vote equally to the town board. There was one person here.
Wow. Shame on us.
It's good to see people here, but I just wish,
Was that person Jane?
No.
Thank you very much.
She didn't answer her phone, otherwise I'd picked her up. Does anyone else wish to speak? I'm going to do last call then for this public hearing. If you think of something, we're going to have one more comment section when the Plan Commission starts. All right, we're going to close that public hearing then at 7:08. We're going to open the joint public hearing to be held by the Town of Lisbon Plan Commission and Town Board of Supervisors to solicit public comments on the proposed amendments to the text of the Town of Lisbon zoning ordinance in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, including Chapter 11, Sections 27 and 28, relating to the commercial special use zoning districts, and proposed amendments to the text of the Town of Lisbon zoning ordinances in accordance with the Wisconsin state statutes, readopting Ordinance 01-18 related to the plan unit developments as an overlay district in the Town of Lisbon. Does anyone wish to speak to this ordinance, or this public hearing, tonight? Is there anyone here at all for this one tonight? Raise your hand if you are. Okay, we'll do final call on this public hearing. We'll close this public hearing at 7:09. And one more. This is a joint public hearing by the Lisbon Plan Commission to solicit public comments on a conditional use permit request for a bed and breakfast for Jeremy and Lori Rush for the property located at North 72 West 24740 Good Hope Road, Lisbon, Wisconsin 53089. Tax key LSBT 0203.994.005. Parcel B, certified survey map 3433, volume 26 to 77. Record as documented 106-8979, part of the Southwest 1/4, section 15, town 8 north, range 19 east. That's a short one. Does anyone wish to speak on this public hearing tonight? Is there anyone here for this public hearing tonight? Okay. If you're here for your item, you'll be allowed to speak later. I mean, if you want to speak now, I don't know if there's anyone else here for it. I think you were the only one that raised your hand. So we'll address it on your item then. Do a final call for this public hearing. We'll close this one at 7:10. That'll bring us to the normal Plan Commission meeting at 7:10. We've already done roll call. This is going to be the second set of comments from citizens present, so this will be your last chance tonight to speak on any of the agenda items. Does anyone wish to add any other comments or speak on any agenda item tonight? Okay. On to item 3, which is discussion and necessary action on the October 10th, 2019 Plan Commission public hearing and meeting minutes. The minutes, is there a motion on the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from October 10th, 2019.
Moved by Chad to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ed Nelson. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Abstain.
Oh, Mark abstained. Motion carries 5-0. Item 4 is old business. We have no old business. Item 5 is new business. A, discussion and necessary action on Resolution 16-19, the resolution amending the Town of Lisbon land use map from rural density and other agricultural lands and other open lands to low density residential. Other open lands to be preserved will not be changed. For the request of Jim Forrester for the property owned by Right Way Bust LLC for the property located at North 95 West 23759 County Line Road, tax key LSBT 0150.997, and recommendation of the town board of the same. All right. Jim, if you want to come on up and.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
As we've heard so far tonight, I think we're all kind of well aware of what the request is here, but staff was taking notes and comments, and so I can be available throughout the discussion tonight to answer any of those questions. But I guess I'll kind of lead with a couple little kind of overarching comments before the applicant kind of jumps off into his request. And it's more or less just kind of comments and clarifications. Number one is tonight is not a rezoning. That is a completely separate process if this was to go through. So what we're talking about here tonight is the comprehensive development plan future land use map, and strictly just that. Oftentimes you do, sometimes you see them both at the same time, but that is not what you'll have here tonight. So this one is the future land use map. In regards to the process of amendment, the comprehensive development plan does list out in the bottom, or in the last section of the plan, what the adoption process is and what the amendment process is. And so in this case, the amendment process is a formal request that you do see here tonight. That is the amendment, the set process. I know there was some comments on a referendum, but the process should follow the exact same adoption process, which was public hearing, Plan Commission, and town board approval levels. And so I just want to kind of make those points of clarification.
Excuse me, who are you? You didn't introduce yourself.
This is our planner, Dan Lindstrom.
Sorry.
Okay. That's nice to know.
You usually don't have to do that. I apologize. Yeah. Usually, it used to be my name tag was facing this direction. So I apologize.
We have a limited space here tonight, so.
All right, and so I can address any of the other comments as we go, but I just want to make those points of clarification. I'd like the applicant to kind of walk through their request, and we can kind of respond to those comments and questions.
Okay.
Well, what I'm proposing to do is have a residential single-family development. We're looking to mirror the subdivision to the east in the same acreage that they are. We've also looked at some layouts, don't have any finalized layouts, don't have any stormwater design yet. We've got some proposed thoughts, but we really don't know where it would be until we get further down the way. This is obviously the first step with the comp plan change. Provided that gets approved, then we'll take and start designing more and addressing all the issues that have been discussed.
All right. Some of the other, I guess, kind of getting into the next kind of point of clarification on a few of these items. There were some concerns that were talked about when it came to stormwater, concerns that came up when you talked about traffic. A lot of those concerns, a lot of those items are to be addressed during a subsequent process, and that would be our platting process, and that's something that you guys typically require, whether or not it's a traffic impact assessment or a stormwater. The stormwater is going to be required regardless, and that's dictated by Waukesha County and reviewed by the town engineer as well. So right now we are strictly talking the future land use, and a lot of those other items would have to be addressed during that time frame. Same thing with the wetland concerns. What we heard tonight was the concern about building in the wetlands. There's specific set requirements of not are being buffered from those wetlands, wetland delineations being required during a planning process, and that is typical not of just this development but of any subdivision development in the community. So I'm trying to go through my list here of clarification points before the commission has any questions for me. From an overall density standpoint, I know the future land use map as proposed here talks about 20,000 to 1.4 acres. That's the future land use map. The town's actual zoning code would be kind of the driver of the final kind of acreage in this case. In typical of what we're seeing in this subdivision as was currently drafted was 1 acre lots as you had mentioned. The actual density is around 1.4 and actually plus change. And so you can actually have a less dense subdivision than what's actually in the prescribed plan, which I think is about 1.4 and some change, not quite at the 1.4 level. You just can't go below that amount in that guide. So as a result, what the proposed development is the 1 acre lots, and so it's not dipping below that. The town comprehensive plan also does state that when you do have that 5 acre density, your lot sizes still can be less than the 5 acres. It's just the overall density. So if you did have an area which you wanted to conserve a lot of space, you could potentially get down to the 1 acre lots or even less through the PUD conservation subdivision, even in that area, so long as the whole development still would comply with those requirements. But I do want to make the point that just because you see 5 acre density, you may not see 5 acre lots in somewhere as well if you're wanting to preserve wetlands and spaces and steep slope. And so I just want to make sure the public is aware of that as well. And that's dictated in the comprehensive plan. So I think those are the majority of the clarification items I had, and then for anybody, I can respond to any questions from the commission.
I usually don't do this, but I'm going to start out with this tonight. I have our old zoning code. I might have one of the last copies.
I have one.
I think Jane's got one too. And, I mean, we've changed a lot of staff changes over the years, but the old plan that was in here had this at what was called A2, which was much different, obviously, than A10. This was down to 30,000 square foot lot sizes. You know, I don't remember why this was ever changed to the A10. Obviously it was, and I can see from here a lot of land was changed. And, you know, we had some A1 in here on the northwest side, and then A2 all the way through here. And this would have been what was lined up probably when the subdivision was put in. There's only one other person or two other people in this room that might remember this that were around during that time, why this was changed to the A10, and I don't remember.
Is it because of the wetlands in that area?
I don't remember. I was on the Plan Commission in 07 and 08, and then I was off when this was done.
Still it might be.
So I blame Jane.
Yeah, no, I think,
Is this before Matt? Before Matt Gerke?
This is in between. I think this would have been Mike Reed, Matt Gerke.
yeah.
Yeah.
I probably wasn't involved either.
You would have been on the Plan Commission at that time, Dan.
No,
Okay.
I think the reason it was left that way is because it is rural, and at the time, we were trying to keep the rural outlook of the township, and felt that fell into what it was, as the A10, et cetera. So we just...
It was more zoned
The
for what
county-
it was. It was
the
zoned
county, the county had a rule that we could only have as a township. We were governed by what the county told us we could do. And they said that a certain percentage of our land would have to be in the agricultural A10. And we were governed by that and had to go along with it because we had no choice as far as the township was concerned. This was the county telling us what we must do. And that's where a lot of the A10 and things, because they required a certain percentage of our land to be rural.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a little history on it,
Yeah.
because I'm looking at, I broke this out, I wanted to see what it was, and then comparison, and I don't remember. I know the county was trying to get us to a 5 acre, I mean, we're supposed to be at a 5 acre density. We're not at a 5 acre density, we're about 3.5, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't get to a 5 acre density in the town. We'd have to start ripping things down, essentially. The conservation subdivision that was being talked about earlier, the conservancy, so if you had this property and you could have a 1 acre lot size and still have 10 acre density, depending on how big the lot was. If it was 54 acres, you could put 4 homes on there in 1 acre lots and still have 5 acre density, essentially, or 10 acre density. Yeah. Not what's being proposed here, but I mean, that's just how you would do that. So, I mean, that was my question there, because when I look at the map and I look at the subdivision, we have a dead-end road there. So when you see a dead-end road that is not a cul-de-sac road, that means that sometime in the future it was planned that road would go through. Any road we have that is planned to end, cul-de-sacs, so that we can get our fire trucks turned around in the future. So if you look at a few roads in the town that are like that, and that is, I can't even see the name of the road on the map there. Oh, Hyde Park Drive. Yeah, so that road just dead ends. So at some point it was envisioned that road would go through. That's what we've historically seen. Now, that road, that subdivision was built, And then the zoning was changed in the future land use map, or the future land use was changed, at least I should say, to match the current zoning. So I'm just trying to get a little history out there
Yeah.
for me also. So. Questions from the board? Ed?
Ouch. In the plat as proposed, lot 13. Are we looking?
This is for the, Ed, this is the,
Okay, I'm getting too specific already.
well, this is the land use change we're discussing right now. It gets tough because you're looking to see what's coming, but it's discussing even if you have a desire to get to that point.
Mr. Chairman, I do not.
Chad?
I do not.
Mark?
No, but I just want to make a comment, because for a long time it seemed to me that, we kind of do things backwards. People are here asking for permission, and we have concerns about traffic and water and a lot of things. And I just want to kind of point out that the land use doesn't really deal with any of those things right at this point in time. And it seems kind of counterintuitive that we may approve or disapprove of something and then talk about those things after that's done. But that is the general process that gets followed in every one of these. So I want to make, maybe generate a little understanding that the Plan Commission first looking at this meeting, and we're kind of following the process as we always do. So, I'm looking at this, and we got a little bit of history from Joe, and obviously there's a subdivision immediately to the east that's built with lots that are even smaller than an acre density, in some cases. And the land use got changed, and now it's at much larger lots. And now we've got somebody asking to go back, not quite as small as what's to the east. So there's kind of a progression here that I'm struggling to determine the best path forward for the town. I can see both sides of this. I can see all the concerns that everybody's talked about. In general, I would just like to say that all of the subdivisions recently, including the planned unit developments that we've had with smaller than 1 acre lots, the water concerns have really not materialized. The modern water engineering that happens with these lots has generally led to an improved situation with the surface water and drainage. And I think, Barnwood is a perfect example of that. People were here, room looked just like this. All kinds of people worried about the water and their property values, and certainly was a huge concern for us. I think it's the first year that they haven't had the water problems that they've had for decades there. And that was due to the construction and the retention ponds that were put in for that development. So I certainly understand all the concerns that everybody's brought, and I'm struggling to weigh those with, the rights of the people that own the property and want to make this development, who brought it to us to do this, and your concerns, and what's the right path for the town. So I don't have any questions, and I don't think I have a good answer for you right now, but that's kind of what I'm trying to balance all these things, and clearly from the information you've received, the people that are here that spoke are not in favor of this land use amendment. That is painfully clear to us. The question is, what's the right thing to do? I know what the right thing to do is in your mind, but what is the actual right thing to do for the town as a whole, which is what we're charged with considering. And what is the actual right thing to do, and for the property owner and the people that are asking to develop this land this way. At first blush, when I read this, I didn't think there would be much controversy. It's a development that's going to end up with a density of about 1.5 acres, even though the lots will be a little smaller because of the retention ponds and the other features of the land that aren't buildable and that are not going to be built. You're going to end up with a density of about 1.5 acres, you know, when you get all done with the number of lots that are going to be created here. And it's very harmonious with the division, with the development just to the east. I mean, if you were to envision this all being completed and drive through there, it would look like, other than the age of the homes, it would look like it was all laid out at the same time, or it could look like it was all laid out at the same time, depending on what the final, you know, roadways and other access points look like. So that's really where we're struggling with some of the. That's what I'm struggling with. I don't know what the other people are thinking, but the process seems backwards at times because we have to decide this land use because no one's going to go out and do a traffic study and a water study and engineer groundwater, and all these things are not going to happen before somebody has a path forward with a development. It's too expensive. You can't do that. It's not done that way anywhere. So that's what I'm struggling with. I just wanted you to understand this. There's nothing willy-nilly going on here, and we're following the process that we always follow.
Thank you, Mark. Jane?
Well, Mark, I think you covered a big thing of the biggest thing in my mind is the traffic situation, because all you really have is either go east towards the subdivision or you go out on the road. And it's terrible on County Line Road, because just to get across, well, you all know what that is. And I know that they're planning to put a roundabout in on Hillside Road now in Highway Q. But that doesn't help you folks down at that end at all. That is my big concern, is the traffic. That's a lot of houses going out on a road and trying to get people to work or to school. I agree with Mark on what he was saying, but traffic is big in my mind. And we have always, as Mark said, with the water, between the county engineer working on it, the town engineer working on it, and the developer's engineer working on it, we have found that the water question is not out in the left field. You know, that it is taken care of and done in a way that we have also stated in our rules and regulations that you cannot put any more water on a neighbor's property than what is going there originally with the property as is. So this covers the people who are next door, etc. You should not have any more problems with that as far as the water is concerned. So I'm really not too concerned about that. But it is the traffic in my mind. That's
okay. Thank you, Jane. Becky?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Trying to, some of this stuff is related to this item, some of this stuff is related down later on, and Ed was going to ask some questions, and we got to be careful what we discuss on this item. So it's kind of walking a fine line here. I have 3.5 pages of comments here from everybody. So a lot of it's duplicates, a lot of it's traffic, such like that, water, stormwater runoff, obviously. I will say on the stormwater end, echo Jane and Mark's comments, we have gotten, I will tell you, a long time ago, nobody was good at stormwater. A few were, but we have gotten a lot better. I mean, our engineering firm is awesome. They look at things, Waukesha County looks at things. I mean, the stormwater end of it, like Mark said on the Barnwood end of it, we have actually, not us, but the developer has improved the stormwater in that area. And there's a few other subdivisions that are looking going to the town, and that's something that gets looked at. It's not just that parcel a lot of times. It's looking at beyond that parcel and how it can improve things. So if there are stormwater issues in this area, there's improvements that can be made at times to help with all of that. Now, we're not at that stage because nobody has looked at any of that. The Bark River issue, I see this parcel actually does not touch the Bark River. Looks like there's a couple parcels here that actually do, so this is, it's actually shielded from that. Now, Shoreland District is governed by the county. So we don't, that's not something we do, the county does that, and they look at it very good. I mean, they're all over that. To me, the biggest issue we have here is in 2009 or 10, whenever we did this, for some reason, it was changed to A10. And it's trying to talking with Jane, it's trying to figure out why it was changed to A10. Was it changed to A10 because there was a reason other, or like Jane said, was it the county? That's where I've been kind of up and down with here, because for a majority of the time that most of us have, even, people living here 30 and 40 years, the majority of the time that you lived here, if you lived in that area, this was zoned A2, which actually allows smaller lot sizes than what we're talking here. We see a lot of kickback from people, and especially on the Barnwood end of it, when we're looking at approving a PUD subdivision where the lots were 7/10 of an acre, and then they had conservancy ends of it where the density was over 1 acre, but the lots themselves were actually a little smaller. And I still stand by Barnwood. It's going to be a great development over there. I really do. And the lots there are 1 acre. We've gotten next to no kickback on lots usually that are 1 acre density, to be honest. I mean, that seems to be what our target was always through the years, was 1 acre density lots. And that actually, this equals out a 1.4 density overall, but the lots themselves would be 1 acre. And that seems to be what a lot of people have wanted. So I do echo Mark's comments and being very surprised at people for being very much opposed, especially since the subdivision next to it, we have lots as small as 0.69 acres. Not all of them. I mean, it's very diverse subdivision, actually, when I look at it. There's one parcel that's 5 acres. There's one that's 2.5. Quite a few that are between 1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. But then there's a lot in there that are 7/10 up to 0.9. So it's a lot of diversity in that subdivision there, no doubt. And actually down off a Crooked Bridge, it looks like there's bigger lots, and then there's also some smaller lots over there. We've got some here that are 0.76. There's a 0.70 in there also. So it's kind of trying to balance between those and looking at that. So there's a lot to this, and like I said, there's a lot of things to consider here. And like I said before, this is also our first crack at this tonight. I do echo Mark's comments also that the process is a little skewed because you have to start here, go here, go here, and go here. And technically, if we don't change the future land use map, that's where it ends right there. So that's a lot of talking. Hopefully it made sense to everybody. So Dan, I mean, you have no history on this from back in the day. Jane, I mean, you're saying this was probably from the county.
It was the county because they said that we were required at that particular time to have such a percentage of our land stay in agricultural type thing. Because they were trying to work a certain number and area and acreage that would stay rural type, which is fine at the time, but as all things change as time goes on. So, but that's basically why it was made into that.
So would you say that back in the day, would you have changed it otherwise? I mean, you're one person on a plan commission
No,
back then.
I know,
mean,
but
it's
the
tough to do
committee,
that too,
I
but-
think, we didn't have too much choice because the county was guiding us and the county was saying this is what we have to have. So you bend. There's not too much choice.
I think Jane's right, because I remember we had to, it had to be done because of the county.
Yeah. I don't mean to.
I think it was the overall density of the town.
Pardon?
I think it was the overall density of the town, wasn't it? Didn't you look at the town as a whole?
Yeah, yes.
Right.
That's,
I mean,
that's what they looked at.
That's what I'm thinking.
They were really pushing 5 acre. I mean, the county says.
It was pushing 5 acres back then, and now that
Right.
everybody's realized it was a mistake.
Right.
Because people don't take care of it.
But back then it was 5 acre, you're a town, towns are 5 acres, that's just the end. It doesn't matter if you're a town that looks like a village, it's a town, you're 5 acres. I remember us making the argument back then that we couldn't achieve 5 acres if we wanted to, we'd have to burn half the town down. I mean, and it was kind of ridiculous. I do remember that part, I don't know if you remember that, Dan, but it was.
Actually, Kathy, I think it was for the overall density of the town.
Yeah, I
You
don't-
had to have bigger lots in one area to compensate for smaller lots in another area.
That already
Right.
existed.
Because the county wanted the overall density from the
Yeah.
township.
Right.
That's my
I
recollection.
hate to blame the county, but.
Well, no, and
I'm
we're not trying
sorry,
to pass
that's
the
the way
buck
it
here, but
was.
it's trying to figure out why this happened, because
Yeah.
quite frankly, it makes no sense to go from this to that. And
I
then,
think you need to, when you tell people A2, I think you need to say what that really meant. People don't know what A2 means. A2 was, what, 20,000 square foot lot?
30,000.
30,000 square foot lots.
Right.
So before this amendment came to be in 2009, 2010, this land would have been developed in 30,000 square foot.
could have been,
lots.
yeah.
Could have.
Could have been.
Right.
It's what the land use plan would have allowed for.
It would have been developed to the same standards as the subdivision next to it, essentially. Actually, all that area. I mean, we had, A2 was like,
All over.
it's,
What color
this
is A2?
orangish color is the A2, and this was the map back in the day. I mean, we pretty much just, we probably plotted the whole town A2 and then just filled in everything after that, to be honest. But I mean, this is from so this was from 1982 up until 2009, that this was the zoning.
Just so you understand, 30,000 square feet is about 7/10 of an acre.
Yeah, .68, which is just smaller than the smallest lot that was in that subdivision.
Yeah.
So, so here we sit, because we have a landowner that wants to petition to have this done.
This is not the only time that we've heard this. We have another item on the agenda tonight that went through this process earlier this year and went from this A10 down to the adjoining zoning, or the adjoining land use designation. So I, from my recollection of what I've talked to other people throughout the process and how this got adopted, that's, Jane's comments about how we're trying to get as close as we can to those items. There was whole stretches of the town that were taken from the kind of a large or greater density down to a smaller density, and this is one of those areas.
Right. But we got to balance, I mean, this is back and forth. You have a landowner that wants to change this, they own the land, they want to do this. We have a future land use map that says this is going to be 10 acre A10. So now we're sitting here, what do? We have a property owner has rights, and we have a zoning that's basically selling people that are, if anyone moved in after 2009 and they looked at the map and they seen this is somewhat unfair on that end. Now, I will say, if everyone wants a farm field next to them, I recommend they buy the farm and keep it that way. The farmers are not going to do farm fields forever. Farming is kind of a dying thing. I wish it wasn't. I mean, I like to look at the old silos and everything in the farm fields. We all like that. I live next to a quarry, so I don't have that anymore. But I live on Lisbon Road, so I have the twin to what everybody has on County Q. Let me tell you, it's 10 to. If I want to make a left-handed turn in the morning, you can forget it. It's 20 minutes. Right-hand turn. If I leave at the right time, I get out just fine. But so I am very much aware of the traffic concerns there. At what point is it appropriate to discuss the traffic as far as on North and Q? Because I know we're allowed to ask for a traffic impact study, but on a future land use change, is that appropriate? I wouldn't spend the money if I was the developer if you don't know what you're going to get.
Right, I mean, generally you see those things down when we're talking about the actual plan.
Right.
And the town of Lisbon doesn't operate any different than anybody else does. I mean, this is the process, and I appreciate it may seem backwards. But as Mr. Meyer and Mr. Osterman pointed out, I mean, it's a balancing act between the private property rights of the owner and the neighborhood and what's best for overall the town. And we saw with Farmwood, we had a room this full, if not fuller actually, where people were so upset about this being a conservative, I can't say the word. Conservancy subdivision. And I actually said out loud to the developer, please tell us, if it was a straight subdivision, how many lots would you have? And it was a greater number of lots than he was asking for. But people were so caught up with how the size of the lot, the overall concept was kind of lost. And I think, to Chairman Osterman's point, I mean, I don't live in the town, I live in Tal Delta, but you have to look at the adjoining uses, and you have to be harmonious, as Mr. Meyer pointed out, that's one of the things you have to look to.
I mean, I believe it's, obviously with the two subdivisions that are closest to it, it is, what's being proposed here is harmonious with that. There's no doubt about that. I got a hard time with this A10.
What year was the subdivision next door developed? I was asking Dan,
I don't remember.
It started in 74, the last house was built in 76.
Okay. That's before me.
Well, for me. James, was Jane here?
No, I moved here at 72.
I wasn't anywhere.
Come on, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Hey, I get that young for a little while yet. So, One other comment I just want to address too is I hear a lot of this, we don't want to be like Sussex. Trust me, we are not. Sussex is developing at quarter-acre lots. And I understand when people came in here tonight and they seen that 20,000 square foot rating, and that scares, if I seen that and I didn't know what was going on, that'd scare me too. We are not doing that. The 0.70 acre size is, I think, the smallest that this town would approve in any shape or form in a conservancy-style subdivision with well and septic. Are there parts of the town that could be developed at a higher density? Along the 164 corridor, there's a few areas there that could get sewer and water. Yes, those are the ends that are closest to Sussex down there. This is not one of those. I wouldn't go for anything that small up here by any means. We couldn't do it. You could not do it. You just can't do it without sewer and water. And there's no sewer and water that's coming here. That's not on any plan that I know of anywhere. So that's not a concern there. But we are not developing the way Sussex is developing in any way, shape, or form, or Milwaukee, where they're even smaller lots. So I just want to get that out right away. So, well, what does the board want to do? I don't know whether they get any more. I mean, if
Can we have someone else decide?
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is the part that sucks. I don't know if we can get any more history, Jim. You know, as far as timetables and everything here. I mean, I don't know when you're looking to do this.
I'd like to do it, spring, summer of next year.
You're talking spring here.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like anything's getting broke down at any time right now.
No, and that's why I gave you a proposed layout, just to try to show you what I'm thinking about. Like I said, I haven't done any complete engineering. I've done some preliminary stuff, but going through the amendment, I mean, I think I didn't have to give you my proposed plan, but I wanted to at least give you something to think about and see, that I'm not trying to do the 3/4 acre lots or whatever, and that they would be 1 acre, and you guys are right with the stormwater of today. A lot less water goes off the site than it used to. I mean, I developed Twin Pine Farms, and the farmer to the east used to have a river going through in the spring, and he gets nothing anymore. And I've done other subdivisions too, not in the town, but same thing. I mean, where they used to have a lot of water, there is no more anymore. It does work. I mean, with all the people looking at it and different engineers from the town and my own and whatnot, I mean, that scenario does work. It's still the same amount of water, it's just retained on the site.
It's how it's, right. Do we have any idea, or Dan, what do you?
I was going to provide a little bit more background on process, a little bit. So the applicant did meet with the town and Waukesha County to kind of go over preliminary process and how this would look. And so the applicant did follow the process that they were supposed to at that time. Typically what you've seen throughout the process is a plan or a development that's come through with a comp plan amendment and a rezoning. The reason why this one did not is because Waukesha County had stated that their process is a little bit different. And so the reason why we haven't this time is because this has to, if this was to move forward, it would have to get on to their next step, which would be Waukesha County in January. And then they'll go through their process for the next few months to update the process after that. And then we'd be looking at probably a combined zoning process after that. The reason why this didn't come because it didn't make sense to do a zoning process until the comp plan was moving forward. And so that's the reason why Waukesha County had requested just the comp plan at this time.
And remember, Waukesha County only changes its comprehensive plan annually.
One time a year.
One time a year. So if the town were to, if this would not move forward now, the property owner would have to wait till January 2021. Now, occasionally the county will take one up, but it's a rare instance. And I think people need to appreciate that as well.
So the county is okay with this?
No, they just say the process is what I'm saying.
But have they stated what, typically they'll give you an inkling, won't they, of what they're looking at here as far as...
All staff has gone through is just the process to follow and things to look for if the development was to move forward. We've only met with staff at this point, so staff has not provided a recommendation one way or the other. It is strictly just at the Waukesha County, and we're providing the information and documentation of process.
Well, that don't make it any easier.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, huge.
Somebody has to make the decisions.
Well,
How ironic
They stuck to the original zoning, because that, you had less density in terms of what the county was asking the town to do. Said very little, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick comment without getting like I was asking about the one property. For all of us, we have to remember, for all of us in this room, I would believe, depending on the amount of time we've lived in the town of Lisbon, we all came from someplace else. We all moved into this community. You can't, although we'd like to, we can't necessarily shut the door on other individuals that want to move into this community. And they are certainly not moving into this community to cause increased traffic congestion, water table drops, increase in crime, etc. That's not why I moved into the town of Lisbon. I believe it was some 38 or 40 years ago. There are many dilemmas I see with this. Concerns on traffic that Mark had mentioned and our chairman has mentioned. That, as has been stated, we really can't address. That's not the issue in front of us. I would possibly like to see this as a conservancy subdivision. I was a proponent for another conservancy subdivision that has been mentioned this evening and that is practically in my backyard. Given weather scenarios, it has not developed very quickly, although it is finished in terms of the roads. If you're looking for more open scenarios, meaning more open land, more land to absorb water runoff, there was a very clear spokeswoman here this evening mentioning habitat, okay, which is also very important since the Bark River corridor is immediately to the north. So there's a lot to think about here. Mr. Chairman, on the gust of it, I was thinking I know this is ironic for me, I was not in favor of this proposal at all, because I have seen traffic on Lake 5 Road grow exponentially, and at this point we are doing studies on Lake 5 and Silver Spring, but nothing really has been accomplished, and I do know that the traffic on Q has most likely grown exponentially in the last 5 to 10 years, and that's only, of course, going to increase when 164 is completed, finally up into Washington County, which is coming very quickly. No further comment. We'll see other comments from the board.
Anything else to add, Chad? Anything else you want to add, Mark?
No, but I guess I do have a question. Did you consider at all a planned unit development with the current land use?
Current land use doesn't work, being the whatever acreage it is. It's not economical.
Doing a 10. What's the, with the A10? I don't know my zoning.
A10 is nearly 10 acres.
I mean, it's just 10 acre. I mean, it's.
Now, there are two different A10s. There's AD10 and A10, and this one would be A10.
Right.
Okay.
Nothing else?
Nothing, no.
Jane, anything else?
No.
No. Nothing else. And we're right back where we started.
Yes, we are.
I will say 10 acres is a tough pill to swallow. I mean, that would be very difficult.
Yeah. I was going to add, Mr. Chairman, that on all feasibility studies with building that's going on in the metropolitan area, even 5-acre parcels are becoming economically a dead zone. From what I'm catching through marketing, etc., buyers are not looking for 5-acre parcels, realistically, and yeah, they less maintenance, etc., etc. And of course, it's cost prohibitive, both for builders and for owners. So maybe I'm reading the wrong newsletters, but
No, you're really accurate.
okay.
Well, next question is, everybody feel they have enough information? important question.
I still have concerns on why it got changed to A10, but unfortunately, we don't have answers to that.
Well, I don't know a great way to figure it out other than, I mean, you know, Jane and Dan, I think Dan doesn't remember. I was on the board at the time, but I wasn't on the Plan Commission at the time, so I don't remember.
I think I'm right, I think Dan, we're right, I think it was the county wanted the overall
Density township.
And I don't think they, we looked at sites in particular, did we?
No, they just had to get the overall density for the whole town, so that area was most of them developed, so they made it bigger.
So,
Yeah.
can I see
And it
that?
didn't make any sense,
map?
because it didn't look at what the site really could accomplish.
Right.
And that thinking, to Ed's point, is really kind of gone out the window. People have realized that no one buys 5-acre subdivision lots because they don't want to take care of it.
Right.
I mean, if that map right there had been A10, you know, the old map, I think I would feel differently. I would.
And I think there was a transition in power here at the town at the time, and I think that
I
probably.
don't think we can blame that.
No, I'm just saying, no, I'm not saying that's the problem. I think there was a transition of people.
It was probably the same.
I don't remember that clearly.
Yeah, what year are we talking about?
Well, this started in like 07, 08. I mean, that's when this was all happening.
I was chairman of the committee, and we worked hard with the county, you know, to go over everything, and that's really, as you said, Kathy, that's the reason we had to back down as far as the committee was concerned, because that's what the county would accept, and we knew if we didn't do it, so that's why it went that way. And I think, as you say, the things have changed. People don't need the 5 acres, or, you know, they don't want that much to maintain anymore, or 10 acres. Although I have 10 and a half, so, anyway, it just, but that's why it was done, Chad. And
Because we were A2, and we are A10 now.
Okay.
So they changed us, and my daughter's property too was A2, according to this map, and
Yeah.
we're A10.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is no A10 on here.
No.
No,
It's
not
probably
wasn't in the
agricultural.
Yeah.
which is agricultural back in
Yeah.
the day.
So,
So,
Mr. Chairman, obviously, the history of the background on the zoning is extremely important. Do we have a kind of conclusion to Stan as to what is being proposed again and what we're faced with? In other words, what's the issue before us? A conclusion.
Well,
what's the-
if you want to.
no.
Or,
You want to know what we're voting on? Is what you're
Yes.
asking? You're
Yeah.
voting to change this either from a future land use map, so we're not changing the zoning. This is the comp plan map. Now, if you change the comp plan map, that's going to open up the change to zoning. Let's be frank.
yes,
If the comp plan map says it's going to be R2, that's what your zoning is going to end up being. So let's not, I mean, you don't want to take this lightly and say that
No.
that's not going to happen. Because you have the
No.
property owner has a right to go to the future land use map. So this would be paving the way for this zoning change. It would be. And then
Okay.
once you change the zoning, if you fit the zoning, you can't deny the subdivision either. There's certain aspects of it you can look at, but I mean, let's be frank. I mean, it's a process that we talk about, but it is,
Right.
we're not talking about a PUD here, so we're not gonna have overall control over them like we normally would with a PUD. That's the one thing that was nice with the Conservancy subdivision. There's certain things you can look at and you have control on that you wouldn't normally. That being said, Jim has done some good developments in the town. This isn't gonna be a bad development, I'm sure of that, but it would be the 1 acre, which I will say, overall, this is the first time I've ever seen any kickback on a 1 acre lot. It really is. I don't know if you've ever gotten any, Dan, but I mean, or Jane, I mean, it's, I am really surprised. I really am, because that usually has been, to keep us at 1 acre, we're gonna be okay. And this is actually, it's 1 acre lots, but it's 1.4 density.
right. I asked that question out of respect for the audience and out of
Right.
clarification for the issue.
Joe, if you remember though, it goes from here to the town board to Waukesha County.
3
But
committees at the walk.
let's be frank, if the plan commission approves it, it's pretty rare that the town board would deny it. In
But
fact,
Lupe,
I
you
don't
gotta go
know.
through Lupe, I mean, there's a number of
Right.
people that county that review this.
Right, but there's a process and everything like that. But we're not gonna act like this isn't gonna, I mean, if we approve it here, chances are it's going to the next one, the next one, the next one, and that's gonna be approved. Once that happens, as long as it all goes that way, but I mean, that is the way it would more than likely happen. At that point, a rezone would be requested, which we'd have to have reason to deny. So I just want everybody to understand that don't just take this lightly, right? You know, this isn't just oh, we're doing this, but it might not happen. I mean, sure, the county might not do it, but let's be frank. But I haven't seen, as far as the subdivision goes, I don't see, it looks like a decent, I mean, we have a preliminary of what it would look like. Now, that doesn't mean that's what it's gonna be, but it's what the preliminary is. I don't see a lot of negatives on that. It matches the other subdivision. Now, granted, we're not supposed to talk. That's not the issue here, though, but.
Can I make a comment?
No. No, but yeah.
The issue here is with the comprehensive land use plan, and from my perspective, the board does not understand why the plan is the way it is now. So I don't see how you can make a one-time change to a portion of that plan when you don't understand the overall comprehensive land use plan.
That's exactly what we're trying to understand of why it was changed to the A10. If it was changed to the A10 because we had no choice from the county to just increase our density, it's exactly what we're trying to figure out.
I think
Exactly.
we should change the overall comprehensive land use plan first, and then when people come to a proposal, people understand, yeah, it makes sense. But to all the people here, it doesn't make sense why you're going against the comprehensive land use plan.
And so what Dan's asking is, whenever we redid this in 2009, 2010, it was a process, and this was changed. That's what we're trying to understand. Like I said, the map before that showed it as an A2, then it went to an A10. The thought is that it was changed to those A10s because the county was required that our overall density on that map be 5 acres. We never were going to get there. So this was just a way to increase it artificially, so to say.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a suggestion? Sandy Shear worked with you, did she
Yeah.
Right,
change?
yes.
Sandy Shear was part of that?
Yes.
If the town plan commission were so inclined, it could, and
Well-
staff could contact Sandy Shear, and we could try to look back if that was important.
If we get this done in December, now, and this is the balancing between the property right and everyone else here. If we do that, can they still get on the agenda in January?
Well, you could forward it to the town board, and in the interim, have staff do it to keep the process moving, because to your point, you may not make it for the January agenda in Waukesha County if you don't keep it moving. And then the town board could take that additional information and make a decision.
I think if the town board is, they don't typically deal with this stuff.
Well, but you know, you have some really.
I mean, Becky and I are on the town board, so
Right.
you have 2.
But you do have some
But-
active plan commission members here who may be able to be convinced to come to one more meeting, and give their 2 cents. Once that information from staff at the county level was retrieved.
I mean, and I would have no issue, and that's why my question was, does everybody have enough information for this? Because that is very important, that if you don't feel you have enough information, we want to get that information, because I'm not asking you to make a decision if you don't feel you have enough information. Now, I don't like having everybody have to come back over and over and over and over again. We don't want to do that, but if you need more information to make this decision, having the town board make it would be a decent compromise there, but then it is now taking it out of the hands of the plan commission members also, which it is their job to make that decision. Could we have another plan commission meeting? Yeah.
I don't know. To me, we've really gotten information. We understand what the people are looking at, what concerns they have, and a lot of it, I think, would be taken care of down the line with any type of subdivision that went through into here. I have no further questions that can be answered at a future meeting. I think we've kind of covered and gone over it entirely, and now it's just a question of, do we feel we want to keep it in the 10-acre or a 5-acre or 10-acre policy, or do we want to change it? And that's what it comes down to. And the problem is, it's not only going to be this area, but there's going to be others that are going to come in and want to do the same thing. But yet, are we saying to the person who owns the land, sorry, you're gonna have to hold on to it because nobody wants to buy it because they can't develop it. So, you know, that's all.
The zoning was there.
So, I get another vote at, I mean, I'm on the board, so I get to look at this again. So Becky gets to
Yeah.
look at this again, so it's really, it's gotta be a comfort level. I mean, I have no problem talking to Sandy Shear. In fact, I'm sure she'd even come to the board meeting, to be honest.
If she had availability.
Yeah, if we have availability of Sandy Shear, we could bring her into the board meeting to discuss it, but this is your last, as the Plan Commission, this is your last vote on the amendment, so. But we're gonna need to make a motion one way or another on this.
Right.
And I'm sure everybody doesn't wanna be here till midnight.
I do want to provide 2 points of clarification. The other, right now, it's future land use map, even though it's A10. Future land use map is rural density and other agricultural land. So we've heard the A10 come out here a few times. Rural density and other agricultural land is 1 per 5 acres, and that's what I was talking about, the 1 per 5 before. So I want to make sure that we are aware of that, and there is a rezoning situation that still is in play for anybody who could want to get down to that minimum 5 acre. The other point I want to talk about is that comprehensive plan was adopted in 2009. It was a 2-year process, goes through that process. State statute requires those to be updated every 10 years and a wholesale update every 20 years. We are right at that time now, and that one was adopted post-recession, or in middle of a recession, and now we're in a housing kind of different housing situation we were 10 years ago. And so I don't know if Waukesha County is going to have a different viewpoint on the overall density as a result of what's been going on, because they did approve a future land use map amendment earlier this year in the town. And so I just want to make sure that we're probably sitting on the cusp of a comp plan update in which some of these things probably would or should be addressed again.
In which we've been preparing for.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been preparing for that. Obviously, there's some other big things in the town we're trying to get taken care of this year, but next year, but. So. Well, this is, I mean, one way or another, it'd be good if somebody would make a motion on this one. I guess I'm gonna get another kick at this at the town board level. Becky will too. So if you have a feeling one way or another, now would be the time.
Could somebody propose a planned unit development at like 1.5 acres density for this under the current land use and zoning?
They could do a conservation subdivision 1 per 5 and leave it at that, but that would, under the current future land use map that we have, which is irony to say, current future land use map. But yeah, 1 per 5 is where we're at right now.
So that wouldn't help it.
No.
You could get smaller lots still, but overall, yeah.
You only have a few.
1 per 5 average density.
All right, well, then I'll move approval and recommendation of the town board of same of resolution 16-19, amending the town of Lisbon land use map from rural density and other agricultural lands and other open lands to low density residential. Other open lands to be preserved will not be changed for the request of Jim Forster for the property owned by Right Way Bus LLC for the property located at North 95 West 23759 County Road. LSBT 0150.997 and recommendation to the town board same.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky. All right, so a little more discussion here. If this motion does pass, Dan's, make sure Sandy Shear is, like, you're at the town board meeting.
She was gonna come tonight, actually, she just didn't make it, so.
I know, and I really wish she would have been here. Like, really wish she would have been here, because I think the overlying factor is, in this decision is what was the reason behind it. So, is there any other discussion on this item?
Yeah, I just want to say that I made that motion because of the land use plan prior to what it currently is, and the apparent design of the 2 closest subdivisions, and the probability that the groundwater is going to be improved from this,
Stormwater.
or the stormwater is going to, is going to be improved if this goes in. Certainly not a perfect scenario, and it certainly was really, really close, but on balance, I think it's better for the town. I think you could tell that nobody here was anxious to jump on board this thing, but I think too that the town board gets another kick at the cat, and if something drastically different arises at the town board meeting, and if Sandy Shearer's got some information that, you know, that contradicts any of that, then I'm sure the town board would take the appropriate action.
Okay. And is, you know, depending on which way this goes here, but the, if you have any questions, obviously, when is the next board meeting that this would be on? 25th of November? Okay. So if this is voted on and approved, the 25th of November, this would go to the town board meeting. It'll start at 6:30 here at the town hall. We typically get here about 6 o'clock. Sandy, if this gets approved, Sandy Shearer, we're gonna make sure she gets here for this to discuss this and find out some of the history. If there is a comment section, just like there was tonight. It is not a public hearing style one. It is a just open comment section. As you have seen, I don't cut people off. I'd ask that you don't talk for an hour, but I make sure everybody gets heard, and it will be the same that night. It's our job to sit here and listen to everyone's concerns. So I hope everybody felt they had a chance to talk tonight. But any of the Plan Commission members, if you want anything written out for Sandy, address it if this passes, or bring it to the board, so we can try to get anything and everything answered that's possible there. Is there any other discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 5-1. Okay. So then, on the 25th of November, that is the next board meeting. So we'll get the agenda out as fast as we can. And if there's anything that's up, that if Sandy Shearer cannot make it that night, that we have to change something, maybe we can change the board meeting to another night to address that. It's a little tough with the times, but we'll try to hit the next board meeting so that Sandy Shearer is a representative from the county. So she's the one that, she was part of this process back in 2009 also, so she can address any of the other comments there. So,
Should Ed state why he is voting no? Because I know that's been requested to be in part of the minutes.
that's usually for conditional use. Yeah, for conditional use, we would have to do
Okay.
that.
I lost.
Well, no.
We all did.
We all lost.
No,
No, you didn't.
you didn't lose.
Okay.
Can we see a raise of hands of how many of you have that kind of land that are zoned in A10? That you would be able to do the same rezoning on your properties? You just said you had 10 acres that were zoned
I
A10.
have 10 and a
so did
half.
you, Ms.
And I
Right,
have
but
a
I have a
subdivision.
How many of those is that a biased opinion so that you can rezone your land later?
No, no,
Really?
no.
Okay.
No.
How many?
If you want to talk to I think there's only 2 people on this board that can do that, but if you want to talk to them or any of us after the meeting, you're welcome to. It's not an agendized item for us to discuss tonight,
Fair enough.
but you're more than welcome to. I don't, I have 1 acre and 3/4, but, so, anyone, I'll guarantee you, after the meeting, any one of us will talk to you. Now, we have to separate a little bit because we cannot have a quorum when we do that, but more, I'll be here, anyone else I'm sure will be too. Okay? We're on item B, which is, actually, did you want, was there an issue to move it?
No, but right before you get to the ordinances.
The ordinances before that, okay. Item B is discussion and necessary action on the request from Jeremy Rush for the property located at North 72 West 24740 Goodhope Road, tax key LSBT 0203.994.005. I'm gonna wait a second here.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
You scroll up 14 more.
What? Oh.
What do I have?
Maybe I should have said that.
You know, I know down here there's farms all around me. And now I've got a subdivision across the
Huh?
street. I'm coming in the next door.
Yeah, she lives in,
That was the one
I was too.
I thought she lived
You
down
guys
in
are
March.
still talking. Mark, very good. Your summation.
But I'm not
Couldn't have been
positive.
that good. Yes, it was. Yeah, no. No, I'm more, I know I didn't back you. I'm more concerned about, well, the issues were brought up. Now, trust me, I wouldn't do that.
So what channel are we on? I think it's 14.
14. We're on YouTube.
14.
Yeah, I don't think it was on.
That green light should go on. Yep.
Okay.
I think it's on. All right. So we're going to move on to item B, which is discussion and necessary action on the request from Jeremy Rush for the property located at North 72 West 24740 Good Hope Road, tax key LSBT 0203.994.005 for the following: a conditional use permit amendment for a bed and breakfast, and number 2, a sign permit. We're going to start with Dan here, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you tonight is a conditional use permit request for a bed and breakfast. At the last Plan Commission meeting, or one of the Plan Commission meetings here in the recent past, we talked about short-term rentals. I'm going to talk a little bit differently here, is because the applicant is actually submitting a bed and breakfast request. That is different from, I guess, what we would typically consider a short-term rental, or those who are just renting a room on an Airbnb. Before you tonight, the applicant does have one of the conditions is a historic property, and what I mean by historic, an older home in the community. They also have applied for and received a permit from Waukesha County to do distribution of the breakfast portion of it. They are currently working through all those conditions, and so I just want to make sure that there's a very clear distinction, because what we talked about last time about short-term rentals is different from an actual conditional use permit for a bed and breakfast here. So the applicant did provide some additional materials to you. They provided their site plan of operation, which was a little bit more intensive than what we typically would have required for a bed and breakfast, but we wanted to make sure that the applicant provided the town plan commission with as much information as possible. So before you tonight is that conditional use permit request for a bed and breakfast. If it would be approved, that would ultimately be forwarded to the town board for approval. But also also in front of you tonight is the signed permit application, so I can touch on those two things as I go. So I have the information, basic
Hang on.
information.
Somebody just shut the door. Can somebody open that door, please?
Gotta keep the door open. It can't be.
Yeah, we have to keep, by law, that door has to stay open.
It's not
Okay.
a closed meeting, people have to be able to come in.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned before, the property owner is Jeremy and Lori Rush, who are here tonight. The business name, or what they're calling it, is the Loft at Butler Place. I'll let them speak to their business model and what they're talking about here. But from an overall standpoint, the town staff is left to review based off of the conditions that are prescribed in the town zoning code. So did put their information in the packet, but here's on the screen in front of you are the conditions in which the town must kind of review that conditional use permit. So the prescribed standards are minimum outward modification to the structures and grounds. I can kind of go through all those, but from an overall standpoint, just not modifying the structure from an outside standpoint to get your bed and breakfast procedures. So interior modifications, however you have to do to keep those to minimal, but from an overall standpoint, not modifying the exterior of the property. Off-street parking shall be limited to provide a rate of 1 parking space per room rented here, and 2 spaces for the owner occupant. So we're not using the owner occupant space for the actual rental space or for that bed and breakfast. The front yard shall not be used for kind of the off-street, so it actually has to be a designated spot in the parking driveway, whichever are for that purposes. The number of rooms shall be limited to 5 sleep in a room, in which there also must be at least one 500 square foot of interior space for that sleeping room. And so the applicant does have one whole space that's available here, while there are some kind of designated sleeping areas inside of that space. We would consider that as part of its whole. So I want to talk about that. One on-premise signage will be allowed such that the sign is compatible with the residential use of the site and not more than 15 square feet in size. And the letter is not more than 5 inches in size. Really, it's meant to be a neighborhood-friendly type signage. The applicant did provide 2 types of signage here. One was for please park here type thing, and one was for actual signage. The important point to note on that one is that directional signage I wouldn't consider in this case an actual sign. It's literally just there for directional purposes. And so even though there are 2 signs in your packet, one of them is a directional sign, which would typically be exempt in this situation. All necessary state and county permits and certifications shall be obtained as a condition of approval for that bed and breakfast facility. And so anything required by the town, anything required by Waukesha County, and anything required by the state would need to be obtained and then also supplied to the town so we can keep in our files as well. This is where we also differ a little bit from the state statute change in bed and breakfast versus short-term rentals. Room rentals for families or individuals, for an individual person shall not exceed more than 14 days during any consecutive 30-day period. So you're not renting the unit for more than 14 days to a specific individual. That doesn't mean, according to our code, that you couldn't do multiples in a row, but from a standpoint, our prescribed standards in our code state that no more than 14 consecutive days to that individual. And then finally, the bed and breakfast must be accessory to and contained with the single-family dwelling. It can't be a separate unit by itself. As you may recall, during the applicant's in-law unit request last year, they were required to contain that in-law unit with a passage through their main unit and not a separate entrance. The same thing applies to the bed and breakfast. It must be along the same entrance. And so I did provide in the packet the applicant's site, concept plans and kind of architectural drawings from last year to show where that was. The upstairs was improved, and the applicant did provide a letter. I'll let them speak to how that improvement happened and how it went. But we did require that improvement upstairs be enclosed in a stairwell, designed, constructed similar to the character of the home so that it was in context and it was exterior in the rear of the property, so it did not have that visual viewpoint from the street, but designed and so that that unit would also be contained within inside of the same unit. So we do have the main entrance to the home, one unit. The applicant is renting out a loft space inside of their home for that purpose, and so they have applied for a conditional use permit request at this time. The other last 2 kind of bullet points here is breakfast, according to the town code, is the only room that shall, or only meal that shall be served at that time. You're not providing a full room and board throughout the day. It's just that breakfast. And then also the kind of the big nugget on here is Waukesha County Department of Parks and Land Use Environmental Health shall examine both the water system and the sewage disposal system so that you are in compliance, and that is something we would require almost on any other applicable piece. So I do have the elevations in the plan up here. You do have the signage pieces in your packet. I'll respond to any questions that the Plan Commission may have, but I'll default to the applicant to discuss their proposal.
Just real quick. I mean, I understand bed and breakfast. In stating breakfast must be served, I mean, what's the restriction on that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are we talking up to 11 o'clock? Are we talking eggs and bacon? I mean, what's...
The zoning
This
code-
seems like one of those
Yeah.
ridiculous things that's in there.
Kind of like someone having tools they have in the garage when they fix cars.
Well, I'm not debating that either. It just seems like one of those things that's... Is sort of...
Yeah.
Breakfast could be a midnight, but I'm not asleep.
Right? So, kind of just seems one of those ridiculous things that was thrown in there, but... Okay. How you doing?
Doing well. Conditional use permit number 3 request. This will be our last one, absolutely. You guys know the history of the home, how we got to this request. So we did look at the options that were before us, the bed and breakfast or the tourist rooming home or tourist rooming house, I think is how it was determined. And a couple of reasons why we chose bed and breakfast. One, the history of the house, the character of the house, it kind of fell under that. Also, the regulations under the tourist rooming really fell a lot under commercial. So all refuse containers had to be, you had to build a structure around them. And there was just a few more restrictive things within that. I'll let my wife, Lori, speak to the kind of the business plan to it. That's really why, really the character of the home, We did already go through all the conditional use, all the conditions have been met on that conditional use permit request. We had Waukesha County walk through, they examined us, they licensed us. I emailed Dan a copy of that license. Just looking, hearing Dan Lindstrom talk through kind of the specifics there. We don't have off-street parking, we do have a designated space just off of our driveway next to a shed. That was the parking sign we put there on the shed. It's got its own separate space. It doesn't impede our parking use. The room itself that is there is 560 square feet. And then we have made the improvements, as you all know, to the upstairs space according to those plans. So let's talk about that. Do breakfast.
Sure. So I'd be happy to address any specific questions you have in regard to our operations. I'm the one on site that cleans and welcomes guests and provides meals. I'm also the one that has investigated all the history of our home. And I do have a handout. I don't know if this was in your packet. Does this look familiar to you? Does it? I couldn't remember if we received it or not. Okay, well, I'd be happy to
We have a lot in our packet, but I do not believe we have that one.
Okay. I'd be happy to include them here. It basically begins in 1844 with the history of the Butler family and walks you from their journey from Liverpool, England, and the ship and their whole immigrant trail to Lisbon, Wisconsin. It follows the family and their 9 children, details where they built all throughout the town of Lisbon. And this family was one of the pioneer families that really helped create the foundation for the town of Lisbon. And it includes the dramatic tale of the axe murder that happened on site in 1897. That was an exciting piece of history to discover 2 weeks after we bought the house. So it is very interesting. And then it does track the history of the home all the way until our family's purchase in 2008. So, 2018, excuse me. So I have copies of those here, and I'll just read them. Just to kind of verify that this truly is a historic home. I actually don't know of any home in the town of Lisbon that is a continual standing structure that has been in existence since 1846, older than the state of Wisconsin. So. For the historic value of the home, it's really a gem, and it is our hope and our desire that by making a space of our home available to the public, it becomes viewed as a gem in the town of Lisbon. Otherwise, it's a historic place, but it's a private home, and there's no access to the public to know the story, to embrace the story, even the devastation of the murder and the reality that life is hard and good things can come out of broken places. So that's really our story and our hope. In our basement, the joist of our home is supported by trees. There's trees with bark on them, and those trees have been there since 1846. And you know, they're like this big in diameter, and that means those trees are pre-Revolutionary War trees, right? Very, very cool stuff. So we just want to make a piece of our home available for the public to be able to embrace the history of our area. And in the meantime, it does help pay some of the bills that occurred in building the in-law apartment at an expensive time of construction. So,
Breakfast.
sure. As far as the breakfast goes, per our license, we did have to describe the type of breakfast that we are providing. So, recorded on our license with the County of Waukesha and the state of Wisconsin, we are providing a continental breakfast. So, I can make homemade muffins, I can offer homemade jams or jellies, but we pretty much offer fruit, yogurt, homemade muffins, granolas, milk, juice, coffee. And in the kitchenette area, we do have no electric skillet. We provide some eggs. I'd love for them to be local eggs, but we don't have a lot big enough for that yet. So anyway, we have eggs, and they can make their own eggs per their specifications. So we have 4 children, I'm not providing breakfast in our home at this point. Right, at midnight or 6 a.m. or any time between.
No, understood.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
First of all, thank you for the very professionally written and complimentary letter. Dan, you're in here too.
I don't like being in letters. They're usually never good when it's at a plan commission meeting. So.
Yes. Hopefully, did you consult Mr. Fred Keller at all?
Fred is my friend.
Okay.
Yes.
Just curious. How many rooms? I'm sorry. How many rooms are you proposing in your B&B?
Sure. So it's a sleeping room, one sleeping room. There
Okay.
is a lounge area, a bathroom, and a kitchenette space that's kind of part of the lounge area.
So realistically, it would just be welcoming one or two guests at a time, assuming husband, wife, and yada yada.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So not multiple, just all right.
One room. And we do have on our rules, no children, because it's above my mom's space. And so we've required adults only because of that, just the running feet and the loud noise. We've required it to be only adults.
Okay. Well, the signage request your request is minimal. You certainly have adequate parking space. If that's going to be the total capacity for your B&B. Are you prepared for the? Never mind. No further questions.
Chad?
I have no questions.
Nothing.
Jane?
No.
Becky?
Was not your son going to live up there?
So that was our initial plan. So this whole thing has kind of gone through revisions, changes happen, right? And so when we
Right.
bought the home, if you remember my initial, a year and a half ago, coming in here with a big plan of we wanted to add a garage over here, plus a space for my son, and then a kind of a music room, we were going to call it. Well, when we realized the cost of everything, we realized we couldn't do that. And so then the conversation was, we're going to just keep the house the way it is, 3-bedroom, and keep my mom in the lower unit and use the upper for our son. And then we decided, well, it would be nice if we could rent this out on Airbnb. So it's kind of been an evolving conversation.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't
I just
been-
because I thought your
That
son was moving in
yeah,
there.
Yeah, and it's just been a process, and we want to do it right according to the town here. But again, had we known from the start we were going to do a mother-in-law unit and a bed and breakfast, we would have done that all at once.
Okay, that's my only question.
So how many conditional uses are we going to have active on this property?
Well, they have the conditional use, and then they came and amended the conditional use to modify one of the conditions. So technically, we still would only have two for two different uses, and plus the permitted use on the property. And so we'd have two at that time.
It's a lot.
We agreed.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I really don't have any, I mean, I'm a property rights guy. I really am. I mean,
I do have one kind of comment on the signage.
Okay.
On the signage application that was permitted, the actual kind of, I don't want to call it pylon sign, but or more or less the sign post with the light on it, where the applicant had proposed to put it was in the road right of way. So my only comment to that one is I'm okay with the size, everything. It meets those requirements. It has to be on the private property though. And so right now it's outside of the current right of, or it's inside the right of way, outside the property. It's got to be moved inside the property.
that's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
existing yet.
Yeah, the applicant's all right. It's not a
Yep.
extensive
So what-
difference in distance, I
No,
assume.
Just move it back behind the property.
Because the other sign's going on the shed.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Anything else from staff? So, somebody want to make a motion on this item?
I will, Mr. Chairman. I would move the request for Jeremy and Lori Rush for the property located at North 72, West 24740, Good Hope Road, with a tax number of LSBT 0203.994.005 for the following.
Do each individual if you would.
Yeah. Conditional use permit amendment for a bed and breakfast be approved as per town planner recommendations and comments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark.
Clarification, this has to be recommended to the town board for approval and to the JPC because it falls within the joint planning area.
You amend your motion to include those?
I do amend, yes, Dan.
Second?
Yep.
Second includes? All right. Everybody understands the motion? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Take a sign permit to Ed.
Yes, under new business, item B, do I need to reread the, no.
Just make a motion to approve. the
Okay,
sign permit.
then item B, Prem 2, sign permit, be also approved as per town planner recommendations. Also, note the lamp, I'm going to call it a lamppost sign, be within the town planner recommendations.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Chad. Any other discussion? Sign permit, that's just clear right here.
Yep. Stop here.
Okay?
They don't have architectural review on that sign? You'd be surprised.
It's not flashing, is it?
Hopefully not.
Okay,
Not even the light bulbs.
all right. Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Would it be helpful for us to be here for the town board meeting?
Yeah.
The 25th?
JPC probably too. I mean, that one,
That'll be December.
yeah, you don't want to come for that one.
You don't have a date for that, do you?
No. I just always
Maybe-
recommend whenever your item's on the agenda, be there for it, just in case.
Is this a binding at the JPC?
No. Recommending.
I'm just gonna give you a fair warning. Things aren't going the best with our neighbors in the center, so this may be very tough getting a JPC meeting with them.
Oh, okay.
Just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
All right.
Been here a year and a half, so.
It's even worse after the month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Item C, discussion necessary action on the request from Frank Gross for the property located at North 80 West 23792 Plainview Road, tax key LSBT 0187.998.009 for a 4-lot certified survey map and recommendation to the town board of the same. How you doing?
Very good.
Excellent. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The item in front of you is a 4-lot CSM. You actually, for those that were on the Plan Commission about 10 years ago or so, this item was brought forth at that time and worked through the process and kind of stalled at the end of the process just due to a variety of factors that were outside, I guess you'd say, of the Plan Commission. So in front, I do have kind of some documentation on the screen. I have the certified survey map in front of you. We did provide the applicant with our review comments as well as I believe Waukesha County provided their review comments. So I do have those on the screen as well. So the first one are kind of the county comments. But before I get to that, I do want to talk about the site in general. On the map, it's adjacent to Plainview Road. When I get up and get to the screen here, although no one will see me. As we get through here, you start to see that there is shoreline jurisdiction that does traverse the property. And so I do want to make sure that you are aware that this process is not only here, it's also with Waukesha County. So they did provide comments, and as well as the town engineer provided comments and our comments as well. So I'll kind of walk through those here. And I'm not going to touch on them all, but the applicant and the applicant surveyor has received all those comments, and they are working their way through those items. So Waukesha County determined or stated that the FEMA floodplain elevation has changed since 2000, or if it has changed since 2004, the consultant flood study. So if that would happen, that jurisdiction line may change. Waukesha County will still be involved in the process, but we do want to make sure that they were aware of that one. Waukesha County shall approve stormwater for this CSM as also the soil testing. The applicant did provide that information adjacent to the site and those locations on the site. There's a couple little more technical items when it talks about the notes in there. I'm not going to dive into those ones because those are clarification points for the surveyor and the applicant to kind of address. But overall, when it comes to stormwater, was kind of a big issue that we talked about, or the Plan Commission talked about 10 years ago. So the stormwater, again, would be subject to county and town engineer approval. So making sure that those have been addressed. The wetland delineation that you do see on the site was conducted several years ago. The applicant did have that kind of concurrence letter updated, and so the DNR did provide that information, so that wetland boundary has not changed. I think I'm gonna, some of the comments that are now going to start to kind of overlap where Waukesha County and our comments are started, some the same here. Typically, we do require topographic soils and zoning information shown on the CSM. The town hasn't always required that, and so if the applicant requests, they could waive those pieces or provide a separate page to include that information. We do have a situation about lot depth. Typically, our ordinance states that lots cannot be more than 2.5 times deep as they are wide, and this time we are exceeding that piece. And it's not to say that you can't, but that does require a waiver from the Plan Commission. So if any motion was to move forward, that would have to potentially be included in that motion. We also do need to make sure that the CSM is, I want to say zoomed out a little bit, but the applicant does own the property immediately adjacent to it as well. And our ordinance requires that the CSM show all lands that are contiguous owned by that same owner. So we do need to work through that one. Again, a lot more of the technical items are going to be about scale. We do need to talk about, again, some of those contours. So it's going to be up to kind of the applicant's surveyor to determine if they can or can't kind of fit those on the application. But primarily, as I mentioned, the majority of the items that you do see in the packet, as well as the applicant, were surface level stuff that the surveyor typically can address. And so, provided with all that, I'd recommend approval with, subject to all the Waukesha County's conditions, our conditions, and conditions from the town engineer as well.
Anything you want to add before we start with questions?
No, that's fine. I've been working on this for many years.
Okay. Questions from the board? Anything, Ed?
No. Well, Mr. Gross, good evening. Thank you. I'm sorry, it's been a long evening, as you've been here for a while. Would you very quickly, what am I trying to say here? What do you want to do? What's your objective?
Well, to continue on with what we started back, actually this started back in 2004.
Okay, so it's got a back history.
Right, and we quit it probably 2008 and 9 because originally they had a pattern plan for rain gardens and retention ponds. And we had put $80,000 into the original amount of money to get this developed. And we just, at the time, said, well, that's a lot more money, another $80,000 for 4 lots.
Mm-hmm.
So we stopped it at the time because we had other things going on in our life in that. So we just decided now that we'd like to bring this up and get it straightened away.
Okay.
And move on.
And you are, obviously we have 4 parcels, and we have 2 shared driveways between those 4.
Correct.
And, okay. No further questions.
Chad?
So I have 2 different CSMs here. One is showing 4 lots and one is showing 3 lots.
Well, that might have been through the process. Originally, when we went to see a gentleman named Mr. Mace, who was the Waukesha County planning fellow, he had it drawn up as 7 lots in a cul-de-sac.
Okay.
And through the years in the process of everything, it worked out to these lots right here. And which was to simplify not having to put a cul-de-sac in and a road in and having the smaller lots. And the reason for the depth of the lots also is because it's wetland in the back.
Okay.
So it technically doesn't really affect anybody. And we thought with a 3-acre lot, they could have a couple chickens, maybe a boat or something, and you could have 1 horse.
Chad, it's a 4-acre, it's a 4 lot CSM.
Okay.
What you're seeing on here is in order to comply with the scale requirement, it had to be put on multiple pages. And so the first page is the overall view outside of our required scale. The second and third page are going to be, second page is lot 1 through 3, and the third page is 2 through 4. So, I want to make you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
And then
thank
the other
you.
point I want to provide is it is zoned A3, which requires that 3-acre minimum. So this is the
And it meets
extent.
it.
Yep.
Okay. No goats.
Okay.
What a cow.
We had cows, we had horses. we
Not
had
profitable.
ponies,
You don't want to
sheep.
count.
Oh, we had everything.
Jane? Any questions?
No.
Becky?
No.
So the length to width essentially,
That would be
you
the
know,
waiver.
that's the waiver end of it here. The conservancy or the floodplain, I mean, is that a reason for this? I mean, we should have a reason for why we're doing this, I'm assuming.
The contours have been provided based off of the floodplain. Now, Waukesha County is always updating flood studies and going through that process, but they are in the process of where that is at the time of application. And so at the time of application, they have it put in where those contours are at this time. So if they complete it, it's later on in the process, and there's a new flood study done, then they have to come.
I don't think this is Joe's question.
Yeah.
To your point, the reason the lots are so deep is because it's all
Oh.
wetland and floodlands
In the
laying
back.
back there. And nothing else you can do with it, so you
Right.
have to put it on the lot and make it more.
I just don't want to create something that we're creating a headache down the road.
No, I mean, these
we did
lots
this.
are, how wide, you know,
We're looking at 218.
they're 218 feet wide, it's not like it's narrow.
Right.
Right, but we
600.
have the requirement for a reason, and we need to waive it, so we need to have a reason
Right.
why we're
But
waiving
I
it.
think the reason is because the back end of these
Yeah.
lots is,
Well, is that the reason?
Yeah, well, they can't build on it. They can, you know, ride horses on it, snowmobiles, whatever. It's technically conservancy land.
Your building envelope is here pretty
Right.
much, so.
Yeah.
That was my question, where the building envelope was.
Environmental corridor.
Okay.
One of 14 other.
Yeah, it definitely gets
I just wanna
squeezed in lot
establish
4 and
why.
3, and then 2 and 1 have more property.
I just want to establish a reason if we're going to waive, that we're
Yep.
not just waiving because
And that would be-
we like to waive. I mean, we want to, there needs to be a reason why we're doing it. So that is the reason, is because it's unusable in the back.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have to add that wetlands are important. My conservancy background. But from the standpoint of what the chairman is bringing up, absolutely accurate.
Right. Nobody can do anything basically with that land. Yeah, it's just there, if they wanna have a horse,
Sure.
you know, I'm enlarging a lot so to make everybody happy.
Any other questions? So I'm ready to make a motion on this item.
I will, Mr. Chairman. I would move that the request from Mr. Frank Gross for the property located at North 80, West 23792, Plainview Road with the tax number of LSBT 0187.998.009 for a 4-lot certified survey map and recommendation to the town board of the same be approved per town planner recommendations, with a special emphasis with also Waukesha County. And was there,
Do we have to add in?
Sure.
was there a third party I'm missing?
The waiver,
And the waiver, I'm sorry,
including the waiver?
including the waiver.
And recommendation to the town board and.
And recommend-
JPC.
Yeah.
Town board and JPC, you're okay with that?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Chad. Does that cover everything we need? Do we have to state a reason on the waiver, or discussion was good
I
enough?
think your discussion is good.
That's good. Okay. Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Long process.
Mr. Chairman, I think if you
I
want
got
to
you.
move down to the preserve.
No
and change
goats.
the ordinance
Yes.
to
Just
that.
kidding.
Yes, we do.
We would have even an acceptable, or the 5 that would probably also take, because we probably do have applicants here for that as well.
So item G, discussion and necessary action on the request from Preserve at Harvest Ridge LLC for the property located at LSBT 0264.998.002 for the following: the developer's agreement and the final plat. That's you.
Come on down, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. In front of you tonight is one of the developments that I spoke about earlier tonight. And so in front of you is the final plat for Preserve at Harvest Ridge, as well as the proposed developers agreement. And so Kathy's here tonight to kind of walk through kind of the developers agreement, and I can kind of touch on some specifics on the plat process. And so we can take them in order and start with the developers agreement, and we can touch on the plat, or we can take them together up to the discretion of the Plan Commission.
Okay, real quick, can you just bring the plat up so everybody can see what we're looking at? You heard reference to Twin Pines earlier tonight, and those of us who have been around know that Twin Pines is been a little bit of a problem, because we allow Twin Pines to be built early because of the parade of homes, which is kind of what we're doing here. And I appreciate this isn't Twin Pines, but the development agreement, we're going back and forth, making lots of revisions, because really this is being developed in 3 phases. The parade phase, second phase, and the third phase. So, we were just talking as of yesterday and today, actually, the two Dans and myself, about how do we handle this. And I'd like some direction from the Plan Commission. I personally think we should do the parade phase, but the problem is the plat is being recorded down, it's gonna show what?
It's going to show, so we in essence have 3 phases from a developer's agreement standpoint, but 2 phases from a platting standpoint. And the weather has been primarily the driver for the issue of 2 phases of a developer's agreement. This year's fall rain and now January weather has kind of really kind of impacted what the applicant was trying to do up until what normally would have been a construction season. And so as a result, we have on this plat, I think it's in your packet, you see another map here that shows kind of a red boundary box of what that first phase would be of construction and completion of construction. The remainder of that would be the entirety of what you see here, and then out lot 4 is the rest of the subdivision that was approved in the preliminary plat
Do you have
process.
a picture of the picture of that one with the red line on it?
I don't think I have that in here, but it is in your packet. So if I can direct you to page
115.
Thank you. Beat me to it. Yep.
I mean, I think we've corrected how Twin Pines kind of got away from us. Our building inspector, we kind of corrected some of the dialogue that goes back and forth.
Maybe not. I'm missing page 115 in mine.
Dan, you want to use?
No.
No.
This one has a square
So,
border.
so I guess what I'd like the Plan Commission some direction on is, we can break the development agreement into 3 phases: parade phase, second phase, third phase. We will call them out by lot number. We're gonna call it out by lot number. But the plat is gonna be this document recorded,
Plat is that document that you see there.
which is more than the parade phase?
Yes.
Okay, which is gonna be more than the parade phase. And I hope that you guys don't mind me calling it that, but I think
No,
it's
that's fine.
it's the best way to, it's the best way to get it moved forward. So, the development agreement, we have it pretty much nailed down, but I wanted some direction as to how we make sure we have, we're gonna approve the parade phase, and we're only gonna install improvements for the parade phase. And then the second phase will be installed, when do you think it's next summer?
Yeah, we'll be grading through the winter and paving as soon as weather allows. So if it's like last year, August, you know, like, this is better time.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
It's been horrible, and we wanna be accounting as best we can, but we have to make sure that we cover the town as we move.
So we will be grading through the winter, and winter's fine to grade. We'll be getting it stoned and ready, and then I expect we'll be sitting and waiting for a drying opportunity to pave the rest of the road.
Okay.
Would it help if I gave a quick construction update?
Sure, it would be helpful to me.
Before you do that, I will say that the applicant did receive from the town and from Waukesha County the authority, as well as a submitted letter of credit to do this work even before the developer's agreement is in front of you tonight. So I do want you to make sure that you're aware that they did receive proper authority to start the grading and do this process before this, so go ahead.
So, it was a really tough winter. The whole year was really tough for construction. When we got into this, it was wet already. We started cutting in from here, and we really had some unusually saturated conditions. When I say unusually, I mean unusually for this area. So we did a lot of undercutting through this road, and we never really got comfortable with the subgrade here. And Mitch, I think you were there for the whole thing. What we ended up quickly deciding to do was to go ahead and come in here. This was always sort of high and dry. This also happened to be what we're going to call the parade phase. So
what we're gonna be paving onto, so we're pretty well graded out. We've got stormwater facilities established. We've got this road really cut in pretty carefully. I mean, I think 12 inches of stone.
Yeah, we actually, that entire, what we're calling parade phase, in consultation with Bitch and CGC Engineering, the soil specialist, we actually pre-undercut that entire road and stoned it with an additional 1 foot of number 3 breaker. So we geogridded, stoned, and then the town section of the 1 foot of stones on top of that. So we essentially have geogrid and 2 feet of stone on everything that's there to kind of assure that this first phase goes in well and stays solid.
So we've got stone in here, we're ready for paving, that is scheduled for Tuesday. That's gonna happen. The rest of this is really starting to look, it looks like a subdivision now. We've got some kind of fine grading in the road, and we would expect to get into this when conditions present themselves. Probably the grading work and the stone gets dropped in the next 2 months.
Yes.
And then we really sit and wait. We wait for the weather to get better, we wait for the asphalt plants to open up. If typical conditions, probably in May.
April and May.
April and May, we're paving this, so
Yeah.
the rest of this is complete.
I guess I'd just like to add, when we're talking about the construction sequencing of the project, and we say parade phase and the other phase, I wanna make sure we understand that it's not like we're not doing anything in that phase 1B or the second phase of what you see here. Sequencing actually dictated that we built those stormwater ponds kind of by that outlot 3. Those stormwater ponds are in, already seeded, matted, and outlet structures are in. So from a sequencing standpoint, we actually went in to develop this whole project together. Stormwater started on the low end. We then moved up to the front end, actually, because our other stormwater ponds were up there. So the logical sequencing was to then move forward, and it's always stormwater first and then everything else. So we logically moved forward to start the stormwater ponds in outlot 2 and outlot 1, and that put us into building the road. In turn, as we're doing this, the weather is continually getting worse, and we look at kind of a contingency plan of how do we make sure that we get a portion of this thing fully completed and paved. So it was a little bit, and Mitch has been really helpful throughout the whole process to kind of work this together, where we had site compliance and stormwater, but functionality and getting the improvements in where it would work for us.
In summary, we're paving from here to here.
Yeah, and including lots, so 8 and 18 were included in the red box. We took the stone all the way, one of the conditions was that we stoned in front of all of the frontage of that. So when you talk about the parade phase, it would basically be 8, 18, and then the cul-de-sac.
That's helpful for us from the staffing standpoint, because we talked about this as recently as today. We didn't really understand what was being built, so we're gonna have to, map it out, it's really hard to read, so if you guys can help us identify the lots not right now. But the lots that are gonna be in what I'm gonna call the parade phase, but would the plan commission be accurate in, so you're gonna asphalt hopefully next Tuesday,
Correct.
past lot 8 and 18?
Correct.
Or in front of 8 and 18?
In front of, yeah.
Okay, in front of 8 and 18, but is the stormwater facilities in for lots, is that 1, 2, 3, and 4? They're gonna be put down as part of this parade phase?
The outlots?
The outlots, but
Well, the stormwater ponds are already done.
okay, so we
Yes.
can modify the developer agreement to say that the outlots 1, 2, 3, 4, together with the storm facilities contained therein are done.
1, 2, and 3 are done, right?
No, you said 4.
You have 4 all stormwater ponds, you're out 4 as well?
Outlot 4. Outlot 4 is our expansion area.
Yes, so it's
Okay, all right, so
1, 2, and 3.
In my mind, there's 4 ponds. There's one that, outlot 3 actually contains 2 ponds, one on the north, one on the south. So there's 3 outlots containing 4 separate storm basins.
So if we just say outlots 1, 2, and 3 will be completed as part of the parade phase together with the stormwater facilities as designed, that would be fair?
Yes.
Okay. The other item I just want to let the Plan Commission know that we've done is we've included in the developer agreement that every lot owner is going to own a proportionate interest in all the outlots. I don't know if it's on the plat, it's going to be on the plat, if it's not, just so you guys know. But we're also putting in the developer agreement. I'm not a fan of homeowners associations owning outlots, and I think the Plan Commission concurs with that. Yep, okay.
And that is business as usual.
That is on the
It
plat.
should be, right? It
Yep.
wasn't in the agreement, so I wanna make sure.
Bullet number 10 on the plat, I believe.
So I think that pretty much covers any comments I had on the development agreement. So if the Plan Commission would be so inclined, we could approve it subject to some additional revisions being made based on what we've heard this evening, and we could forward it to the town board, so these guys could move it on, but it's up to the Plan Commission. Are you comfortable doing that?
Yep. Comments from the board on the developers report? Anything, Ed?
No, in looking at the map, it's been outlined very clearly, so you're paving through 8 through 18, basically, that's Crispin Court, you're calling it. And the settlement ponds, as Attorney Gutenkus mentioned, are in outlots 1, 2, and 3.
Correct.
All right. No further questions.
Chad? Nothing.
So unusually wet ground didn't cause you to have to re-engineer anything? We're not gonna end up with a water problem at the end?
Just
You
a
probably
lot
heard
of
the
s-
discussion
just
earlier.
A lot of stone under your roads.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a-
Okay,
it's like a
thank you.
super highway.
Real solid roads and, you know, just, really what the weather does for us is it's timing. The basins get built to the, you know, elevations regardless of the weather. It's just how long and how efficient we are in getting that work done.
Jane?
What is the date usually blacktop after this first or second week in November, nobody is putting it down? And that's my concern.
They still are right now, because we're selling a lot of RV antifreeze to Stark.
I can respond to that. So DOT specifications actually list October 18th as a date that paving should be completed by.
Yeah.
And then from that point on, it's engineers approval moving forward. At this time of year, there are plants that are open still typically till Thanksgiving. This is an unusual year. At this time of year with this type of temperatures, there's additives that we can put within the asphalt
There
mix
are.
design that helps keep the heat within that and make it workable and placeable on the project site. So,
Okay,
and then
that's-
one other thing that they've done as well with trying to avoid frost setting in the ground, they've put salt on the paver dip to help keep any type of frost setting in the ground. I've done that on multiple jobs before in the past, and it works out pretty well. Because you don't want to place the pavement on frozen ground.
No, because I'm concerned because after they're gone,
Mhm.
the town has the responsibility of the roads, and I don't want something to happen that all of a sudden the town's got to take care of.
Correct, and in talking with Eric as well, we had our on-site meeting this last week. Next spring, prior to any other surface pavement going down, we'll walk the site, inspect it. I'm going to invite Joe Stefano along as well to walk it with us, and we will mark any areas that have failed, potentially because of the weather, before we would do any, and then remove those areas, wedge them in again, and then surface those areas, or surface that roadway when feasible.
Okay, thank you.
Becky?
Nope.
All right, is there a motion on the developers agreement? Make a motion that we approve the developers agreement for the Preserve at Harvest Ridge for property located at LSBT 0264.998.002 as listed tonight with the attorney's comments and the attorney, engineer, and planner's comments. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any other discussion? This is recommended to the town board, Dan, too?
Correct. Yep.
So
So
recommendation to the town board.
Staff does have one comment. We anticipate that phase, as we talked about, 3 phases. We anticipate phase 1
One
and phase.
second, I started the motion, let me finish it.
Oh,
And then,
do we get a second? I thought I.
not yet.
Oh, sorry.
Is there
Well,
a second?
I did second,
You
but
did second? Okay.
I did,
Is your
sorry.
second okay with adding the town board?
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, now go ahead.
There you go. Sorry about that. As we talked about, there's 3 phases here, but we anticipate phase 1 and phase 2 being pretty much identical. The only difference is the applicant wished to get the building permits ready to go so that they can move forward with the parade of homes. That's the reason why we're separating them into 2. I would propose that the fact that you're seeing this here tonight, the changes are going to be the exact same, that phase 2 also be recommended to the board at such time it's ready to be drafted, so that they're not coming back here just to get a stamp and move forward because it's all set.
We could, so just so I'm clear, you guys, you intend to install the balance of the road past, I apologize, I can't see, but up to lot 1?
Yeah,
Yeah, 7 and 19 through the rest of lot 1.
When do you think you're gonna install that?
May or June.
As soon as possible. Realistically, it's gonna be in the spring, but I'm thinking, yeah, May or June, late April if the weather holds.
We have 5 board meetings between now and then, 5 Plan Commission meetings.
Okay.
I don't know,
Mhm.
what's the Plan Commission's feeling on that?
You can just do an amendment to the development agreement to allow that part to move forward. It's up to you.
Work for you?
Yeah.
That makes it easy. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So the motion stands as presented.
Right, well, whatever's the most, effective or productive, both for the town and for the developer.
We got time.
Yes. 5 more meetings, Mr. Chairman?
As the way this winter is gonna go, we might have 9.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Anything else from staff?
Nope.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
All in favor on the developers agreement? Say
Aye.
I'm
Opposed?
abstaining.
Motion passes 5-0 with Jane abstaining. All right, final plat.
All right. So, on the screen is gonna be, some slightly modifications to what you've seen in your packet, and that's because, the applicant, we have provided our review comments, and they wanted to get to, address as many of those comments as they can. A lot of those comments are gonna, again, be technical in nature, notes, very specific things that they addressed, and so I do have, a copy of, kind of their response letter, and I can talk through those comments. But I don't know if the applicant has seen the comments from Waukesha County. Those came this week.
Yes.
I would assume Sandy sent those informal
Yes.
final plat comments to you, so
Yeah.
anything that we talk about here today is also going to be subject to condition of Waukesha County having that review. So from an overall standpoint, as I mentioned, you saw my letter, the first part of it. There was a lot of, I would say, almost questions about the civil drawings, but I know Mitch has kind of been working with them on those pieces. But a lot of that has been updated. They've provided the updated civil plans, which I think that you kind of got to review them all. So anything related to civil, I'm going to kind of take away from my review letter because Mitch and his crew have done a really good job of following through that process. So I'm going to stick more towards kind of the planning pieces as well. So from an overall standpoint, the applicant did submit a copy of the wetland delineation report to the town, so we do have that. Dan has put it in available to me now. We're talking about Outlot 4, and we talked about the clarity of notes about being partnership owned or fractionship owned by the individual owners, and so they've done that so that the town is not liable for any fees or charges that would be in play if they would become delinquent on those properties, and so the applicant has provided that correction. I'm getting a little stuffy here tonight, so I apologize. I do want to touch on some of the specifics about drainage swales, and so as long as Mitch is comfortable with the drainage swales that were provided in the civil plans, and as long as we're comfortable with those, I'm comfortable moving forward with kind of taking that comment off mine. We also talked about the proposed easements being labeled to the public, and so the drainage easements have now been labeled public drainage easements, so that we can address those comments. Some other smaller technical items were making sure that all structures within 50 feet of the plat boundary be shown on the plat. There was a couple that were close, and so the applicant did update that document. We also had them relabel lots 26 through 23 so that it can become sequential when it comes to phase 2 of this project. So we just had them flip those numbers, and so those are different from what you see. So 23 is now on the south side of Green Meadow, and then moving forward to 26. And so that was a requested change. The applicant also did provide some additional clarification on all their lot tables. They provided commas to make it a little bit easier to read, as well as rounding and providing square footage acreage as required per town code. We did have some clarifications that we requested, which was Autumn Run and understanding if that was going to need a temporary cul-de-sac waiver for extension, but the applicant did provide the dimensions as less than 500 feet in length, so there is no waiver required. A civil plans did need to be updated to provide a temporary cul-de-sac, and I believe they have provided that to you guys. So making sure that we do have that temporary cul-de-sac. And then there was a point of clarification between the two. We do understand that the island between Crispin Court will be a shoulder and not a curb and gutter. So we do have that point of clarification as well. And then the final, I believe my final comments are really, I guess you would say, surface level, which is gonna be, address any comments from Waukesha County, address any comments from the Village of Merton, because this will have to go to the Village of Merton JPC, address any comments from the Department of Administration, address any update and make sure that there are any additional existing access easements to the site. We did see a couple that they have been clarified, so just make sure we're okay there. Make sure that the utility easements shall be provided on the plat, and that was also the comment from Waukesha County. And then just making sure that there was a couple small typos that were corrected, and they did correct those typos. So from an overall standpoint, the applicant did meet the bulk of our comments. I'm not going to go through all Sandy's comments, but I can address any questions that you may have from them regarding some stormwater. But she did provide some language and some follow-ups as a result of the phasing different from the preliminary plat.
Comments or questions? Nothing?
No, very thorough, as per normal.
Nothing, Chad?
No questions.
Mark? Jane? Becky?
Nope.
I did have one follow-up for the applicant, though. I did want to touch on the width of Lisbon Road dedication, and I kind of couldn't remember if that was 50 feet or 60 feet on my
50.
It's 50 feet
It's
from my
50 feet,
50 feet from
but
my
they had
recommendation.
60 on some.
And we did 60, I believe,
Yeah.
on this individual because it was the north side was dedicated for a bike lane in the plan. Sandy did comment on that as well, so just follow up with Waukesha County what's going to be required for that dedication purpose because of that being designated by travel in the future. For future construction.
Dan, has that moved around a
We are-
little bit?
Huh?
Has that moved around a little bit?
The,
The 50 versus 60?
that's my follow-up is just, whatever Waukesha County's comment is gonna be the defining factor because it is their road, so whatever their comment is. They required 60 when we did that 5-acre piece, and so if they're shifting back away from it now, that's gonna be their fault.
Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion on the final plat?
I would move that the request, this is item G,
Yes.
I would move that the request from the Preserve at Harvest Ridge LLC, for the property located at tax number LSBT 0264.998.002, or the following developers agreement. Item
No,
1,
final plat.
item 2, final plat be approved, or also recommendations of town planner and comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, well, it has to go to the board and to the Merton JPC.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Okay.
And my specific conditions of approval are those 7 that you saw in your packet, but the first one being all the things that we talked about, Waukesha County's comment, that's an all-encompassing piece of that. I just wanna make sure that the conditions are gonna be those 7, subject to all of our reviews.
Correct, and do we need, should I mention in my motion, the said item of additional final plat items be given extra attention, or, no?
Subject to all. Yep.
Subject to engineer
And
comments?
that's what condition 1 is
Okay,
for.
because I'm obviously looking at it right here. Okay.
Motion and
We're
second have
okay?
been made. Dan, you got all that?
Yep.
All right. Any other discussion?
I don't pay you enough.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Motion carries 5-0 with Jane abstaining.
Quite all right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on to the conceptual, and then also, we'll come back and then we'll address the ordinance changes. So, item 6A, discussion on a preliminary site plan for the property owned by Bean, how do you pronounce your last name?
Hamden?
Hamden, all right, and located at the corner of County Highway F and County Highway K, tax LSBT 0284.994.001, for a proposed truck washing station. How you doing?
Pretty good, yourself?
Excellent.
Good.
Yes, I think
This isn't even-
gentlemen have been here since,
They've gone much longer, unfortunately.
I think you've been here since the opening gun.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you tonight is a conceptual discussion for a site plan of operation at the corner of F and K for a proposed truck washing station. In your packet, I don't believe my link linked up here. Now that I look at it here, I had these all linked, so I apologize. But in your packet, you did see the proposed site plan, proposed concept plan, proposed elevation. So I did want to talk to you guys a little bit about that proposal. This is in our B4 district, so which is that district that we'll also be talking about a little bit later tonight. But from an overall standpoint, right now, the B4 district is that district in which has a little bit higher design standards, but from what's being proposed here is a truck washing station. So I will let the applicant kind of talk through that, and I can then touch a little bit more on the B4 district.
Okay, so what we are planning to look at is a two-bay truck washing facility. The dump trucks in the area and some food carriers in the surrounding area are looking to have their trucks washed on a regular basis to keep the roads clean. So our applicant is looking to provide that facility. It's 2 bays wide where we can fit 2 dump trucks per bay, so I can wash 4 trucks at a time. And then there is a waiting and office facility for all the drivers to go in and wait while their trucks are being washed, and then the office position, and then the mechanical room. So it's a very simple operation. Trucks pull in, doors get closed, trucks are washed, trucks pull out. Depending on the operation, we have the extended drive lanes for the trucks to be staged outside while they're waiting, just like a car wash does. So in essence, that is what we're looking to build. We're looking for input on what the requirements are for the constructability of it. We would like to do either a concrete block building or a precast concrete building, simply due to the durability of the product with all the heavy washing and water and the dirt that's coming off the trucks. So that's what we're looking for.
This isn't automated at all, this is a full hand wash system.
Yes. High pressure hoses, operators come and spray down the trucks and clean them out.
Really?
So it's not automated. No.
Okay.
Can you speak a little bit more to the actual use of the water and kind of the filtering and all those pieces and recirculation?
Yeah.
We are looking into a fully reused water system. That all depends on the economics of the facility and whether we get this approved or not. The water table and the water usage in the area would require us to use a well system, which we have to pump the water up. We would prefer to catch the water, clean the water, filter it, recirculate it back into the system, and pump less water out of the ground. We are also looking at a detergent system if we do get into the cleaning of food type vehicles, the milk trucks that are in the area. That has a different chemical makeup that we have to use, so we will have to have a filtering and cleaning system for that. So once we get a little bit farther down the line on this, we will make those final determinations on how we do all those systems.
So, as you're proposing, obviously you're going to be on a well system,
Yes.
and then you're going to recycle / clean, clean water.
Right.
In the case of obviously washing or the stuff that comes off of heavy machinery, we're going to have residues, oils, etc. What's going to happen with the dirty water?
So
You know what I mean by dirty water? In other
Yeah.
words, the water that is contaminated that you don't want to send back into the system.
So that will have to go into a septic or mound system because we do not have sewer in the area.
No, we have
Correct.
a holding tank.
We have a holding tank.
Holding tank, 10,000 gallon holding tank.
Okay. And that will have because on another matter many years ago we got into this discussion with the gas station. That will have an alarm system on it, so that hence, if it gets close to capacity, will you shut down the facility? And this can really cause a problem, obviously, for customers.
Yeah, if we don't have the ability to discharge the water, we obviously can't pump the water. So it'll have to be shut down in that aspect.
Okay.
So we'll work with the DNR and all the requirements for that and go by their guidance as to what the full requirements are, and we'll comply with those.
In terms of, I see you have a main building, which is the wash facility itself, and then there's a small office annex, which is next to. Will the office annex be facing State Highway 74?
That is facing to the west, that is 74.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes, because we're putting the office core on the west side, because if we do get to do expansions of this, we want to move away from 74.
Correct. Yeah,
We wanna push
yeah, you want to go to the
as
east.
possible.
You'll need
Yeah.
that flexibility, and I see obviously the access where the vehicles, the trucks will pull in and then exit. In terms of durability, as the commission knows, I'm usually a stickler on colors. I would recommend precast concrete and/or block.
Right.
And were you thinking the little bump out that would be the office or the your servicing point where a minimum number of employees would be? It looks like in the drawing it's some type of metal material.
Could be a metal pan system.
Okay.
It's a smaller building, it's a smaller section of the building, it doesn't have the durability requirements that we have, so we may do that out of metal studs with a metal skin to it.
Okay. Yeah, because our drawing really doesn't. Looks like precast concrete, pieces that can be set in.
Right.
I would just recommend that in terms of the office, try to have the office be a somewhat different color than your building itself. So it's not looking like, because
Not a monolithic.
again, right, I realize but it's still for the town. 74 is a major corridor into the town of Lisbon, despite whatever may happen down the road for us. I'm always concerned. I want our buildings within our community, basically our business buildings, to say something obviously very positive about our community and our town. I know I'm probably missing something, but no further questions.
Chad?
I'm good.
Mark?
What happens to all the solids? Well, you're gonna get
The
stone.
solids will sediment out, and they'll be scraped off, and then just discharged to the garbage.
They would be discharged to a dump site. Picked out a couple of them.
You have a screening system in the drain
Yeah.
lines, there's a screening system in there, it'll sediment out, we collect that, put it in a container and send it out to the dump site.
So either I'm missing it or didn't see it, but where is this, where are these trucks entering and leaving from Highway K?
K, Highway K.
And where in relation to the driveways for
Yeah,
your
It's
station
across the
there?
street from my station.
It's
the same-
not a K though.
Yeah.
There's a side
Good
street.
corner.
They're gonna enter through in the
Is this
industrial
labeled here
park though,
somewhere?
correct?
Yeah, not on
Yeah.
K.
Okay.
Yeah,
There's a
not on
side
K.
street.
It's
Yeah.
that.
We come off the north end of our
Oh, you're
site.
coming up.
In the
Yes.
That's the
corner.
entrance.
Yeah, we're Gordy's to get down into
Yeah.
Ivory.
It's the entrance
They can
to
go
Quarry.
south or they can
Yeah.
go back,
Yeah.
Entrance to Quarry Corners, I
Right.
believe. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
The sheds are my neighbor's.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
It's not a good looking.
No.
So calling it up here, there you go. So we're entering off the side street.
Mhm.
At the north side of that's the access in, we got a bypass lane in case somebody pulls in, doesn't want the wash, they drive by, and then everybody exits out on the south side. And then they can go north back to the main road or south through the industrial park.
Okay.
Mark, I mentioned dirty water, and Mark mentioned solids, etc. Does the county check these facilities on a monthly or a weekly basis? Attorney Goodenkoos, do you know, or Dan?
Well, when we went through this with Wexford Heights, I don't recall the county making any change, any review. I mean, either it's on your roads or it's gonna be collected into a container and it's gonna be disposed of.
Yes, because obviously we're not going to be there 24/7, and we are concerned about the disposal of contaminated
We
materials.
have a dumpster to dump the stuff in, like a garbage dumpster, but it's gonna be for dirt and for sand only.
Okay, and
That
okay,
provided
is
by-
this an ordinary dumpster, or is this
Yeah, like the one from the, those, like Eagle or some.
Waste management.
Okay.
Or whatever.
It's a dirt dumpster as opposed to a garbage dumpster,
Yeah.
as opposed to a recycling dumpster.
Most
Yeah.
of it would be reused again.
Yeah, because
It's
what I'm
regulated by the DNR anyway.
yes, because what I'm asking is obviously one can go to any fast food place, and if you see a dumpster, it's leaking.
Yeah, no,
That's a grease dumpster.
Okay.
yeah. And
It's recycled stuff.
Now I'm getting educated on dumpsters. I appreciate that.
I'm sure when we pull out a shovel full of dirt and throw it in a dumpster, there's gonna be some latent water in that. which that may leak out. We're not going to, this isn't gonna be totally dry when we clean out that trough. So you're gonna get some leakage in there, but that's gonna come back through, and that's gonna be somewhat sanitized and go into the sanitary system.
I mean, we're making light of this, but obviously my concern would be about any contaminated soils that could possibly leak or leach off-site. We do not want that because, I mean, even though this is an industrial area, it's gonna go somewhere.
Right.
And somebody's gonna say, well, why didn't you check this? Our well, you're endangering our wells, et cetera. Because to my knowledge, every business within Quarry Corners is on a well and septic system. It's not storing water.
It might be wise for the applicant to go back and look at the Wexford Heights project, because they did a lot of investigation into recyclable water and contaminants.
Seems like they're taking it a lot further than Wexford was.
Mhm.
Maybe,
Yeah, this seems like a
Larger.
Yeah.
larger facility.
And that I appreciate. So,
I mean,
What is Wexford Heights? What
It
is
was the development that included a gas station and a car wash, but it was the only car wash I think we've ever dealt with, isn't it, Joe?
I don't know. It was 20 hours of fun.
oh, yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
It's a truck wash, it's the only one within 50 miles actually.
Yeah, the next one is way down by Franklin, I think.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go look at that and see what they did.
But I mean,
More, but
I mean, the system they're gonna be looking into is, like you said, it's gonna be regulated and everything, and I mean, it's,
Yeah.
they're not just building this on their own. I mean, this-
Well, no, I'm obviously not, you know, I don't want to question the, quote,
Yeah.
integrity of the owner. I'm just concerned about, you know,
Right.
hazardous, I mean, because trucks are trucks.
I've been sitting on this land for 3 years, studying what to do.
And you'd like to do something with it that's productive.
No. There is good chance that those quarries are gonna expand at some point as far as down. So you may wanna think about that when you drop a well.
I doubt it. By me, they're gonna get any further because they're going east with limestone.
Right. But at some point, they're gonna go down again.
They're not allowed to go more than 90 feet, Yeah,
You wanna look at that
that's
again.
what they told me. They told me that.
So they're talking about going, they're talking about going 600
down.
down.
And I think it's the state. They regulate that. They said 90 feet is the most they can go down.
Just met with
Because
them
they
2 weeks ago.
They took all the wells for Hallquist, if you remember.
Yeah.
And they had to. Everybody lost their well, and then they were
Right.
going to hook up with Pewaukee, and the Hallquist backed up because they were going to cost $1 million.
Yeah. No, but this is the new age of how they're gonna try and keep these things located more centrally. So just had this meeting 2 weeks ago.
Well,
That's
then
all
by
he's
then
saying.
I probably hook up with Pewaukee, which is not too far away, already on Lindsay. I can, you know,
3.2
ask him to
million.
come in.
Yeah.
I'll put in a
Well, if
line
he wants to bring
for
it to
water.
3.2
If you're gonna bring it in, we'd love to have it.
No, I'm talking about the water.
Understood.
That's what Hallquist was trying to get water from Pewaukee.
Yeah,
They
no.
agreed to pay $1 million, and I was hooked up with them for the station
Right, that
and the
was
stuff. But they said, no, we're gonna save 800,000, so they went to the 200,000.
If there's an area of the town that could receive water, it's over there at some point because of the quarries and the expanding.
Yeah,
but we're working on the north side of that right now, but it's,
When we get there, we'll
right.
see.
Just letting you know, I mean,
Yes.
make sure your well goes down deep enough. So,
As we start to kind of, I think, wrap up some of this conversation, as you might imagine that the zoning code does not have a definition for standalone truck wash. So the B4 district does allow for conditional uses outside of some, if as long as it's relatively in compliance with the other conditional uses. There are some prohibited uses that are currently in the code, and so one of our conversations amongst ourselves was trying to figure out, is this in the prohibited, is this in the conditional? So we've kind of veered towards the fact that this probably is likely a conditional use and unspecified conditional use as we go down that path. But keeping in mind, this is in that overlapping jurisdiction area when we talk about Sussex as well.
and this is the original jurisdiction area also, so this one is, there's no doubt. Have you guys had any discussions with Sussex about this?
No. We've had an initial meeting with staff level, but we have to go through the process over there as well.
What did the staff say?
Bring it through the process.
maybe they should start over there.
Well, it's conceptual anyway, tonight. We're not really taking a vote on it.
Whoops.
That's why we can't have nice things.
I broke it.
We're simply looking for comments, feedback, and yes, we, poll vote, straw vote, if you will. We will approve this if it comes forward, or don't even think about bringing this forward because we don't want it.
I mean, as far as being open to it, looks like.
I'm
in favor into
Yes.
looking into it further.
Yes, we can certainly move forward.
You didn't
No
get
objection.
You didn't get a no.
Yeah.
But I would definitely talk to our neighbors in the Senate
Yes,
first
we-
because.
Our neighbors to the south?
Yep.
Yeah,
Never mind.
it's not a. It scares me a little bit when they say
That
go
means
through the
you're gonna come
process.
back
I've been
again?
through that process.
Are we gonna come back again?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Several times.
Yep.
Hopefully not at 9:30 then.
No.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Any
But
further
yeah.
comments?
Anything from
Feedback?
staff on this?
Well, we had an engineering done on the wetland for the DNR, it was done, was a little piece on by the road, just about
Yeah, I've seen
5
it.
feet, yeah.
Yeah.
listed on there.
Yeah, that's about it.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thank
you
you
guys.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, boy.
All right, item B is discussion necessary action on the request from Danette Mayrack, so we get that right, and Sarah Christian for North 75 West 27099 Oakwood Road, taxi LSBT 0216.996.002, and North 75 West 27092 Oakwood Road, LSBT 95? It's listed wrong in here. LSBT 0216.996.003 for a conceptual review to remove a park pathway reservation. What are you doing? Long night.
Been here a long time.
Oh, yeah. We even got here late thinking it would be okay.
You were okay. Okay.
So, you all have seen where this proposed path is?
Sure.
Yep.
It's actually not a proposed path, it's actually a reservation. And what happened is when our land was divided, there was a reservation put on it for a future walk path that would have supposedly connected Woodland Oaks, Thousand Oaks over to the Lisbon Community Park. Problem with it is that if you look at the conceptual, the top, let me see. Okay, the top is Oakwood Road. It ends prior to Oakwood Road. That area that is highlighted, and then there's an area to the road there that you don't see the highlighted part, that is owned by Mike Stahl. So we actually have a reservation for our driveway across Mike Stahl's land to get up to our homes. And basically, this walk path is landlocked on both ends. It's landlocked on the south end by Kelly Hanaway, and it's landlocked on the north end by Mike Stahl. The idea when it was put into play was the fact that someday they may want to connect the Thousand Oaks, Woodland Oaks to Lisbon Park. However, being landlocked, and then also the fact that there's now a walk path on Lakeside Road that connects those subdivisions, we would like to have this removed. There's really no reason to have it anymore, in our opinion. And we're a little concerned about the safety reasons of having, if somebody sees this on.
I don't think this is gonna be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan,
no.
what do you have any comments on?
Any comments?
So when I had my staff or my surveyors take a look at the process for this one, I know Ed, you probably have a little bit more feedback to this one because of your experience in the park side of it, and you can you touched on that last time we talked about this, so.
Yes,
I think-
earlier discussions.
Yes, I think I'll let you maybe lead your history behind it, and I can talk on process more or less after that.
Well, thank you, Dan. This kind of reminds me of a discussion we had earlier this evening on the history and the backstory. Basically, it boils down to the fact that at the time, to my knowledge, what the park board was trying to do, or what we were doing here, was to open up access to Community Park, because Community Park was basically in its infancy in the early 80s. This would be 1981 through approximately 1985. It had not really been developed yet, but so we're looking to give access to then Thousand Oaks. and Thousand Oaks Phase whatever had not been developed yet. So we're looking for an easy access route for town residents in the Thousand Oaks subdivision into or towards Community Park. Well, that idea, as presented, just basically sat. It's a matter, it was recorded, it's a matter of record, but we never followed up on it, so to speak. Things developed, and now we have, as you just pointed out, Sarah, Mrs. Christensen, I assume, the now pathway that connects Barnwood Conservancy and other areas of Thousand Oaks to Community Park. It actually goes down to Oakwood Road and follows Lake 5 Road. So, bottom line is we have a conduit for subdivisions, both that border along Lake 5 Road, both within the town of Merton and the town of Lisbon, to get to the park. So,
Long story short, we don't need this path.
we don't need this path anymore. Long story short.
All right,
Okay.
so we're good there. Dan, what's the process we gotta?
So the process
What
that
do
we
we-
have to follow is simply either a surveyor or an attorney drafting a release document. And that process can then be approved by the town board. Typically, that would be approved by a resolution at that point, because you were the individuals who granted that release or that easement as part of the approval process. You would have to be the ones that typically would release that.
I think you just gotta tell us what action we need to take tonight. This is like cut and dry.
It's direct town staff
Well,
or.
can I just look at your map?
If there's no, if the town has no use for it anymore, no planned use for
We
it.
do not,
It would be
realistically.
drafting the release document to be,
It actually probably a vacate.
it's not an actual easement, it was just a reservation. And so when I talked to my surveyor, there was a difference between a vacation of an easement and a release of a reservation, so.
It depends, we've talked to reservations and dedications can be seen as one and the same.
You got 6 plan commission members looking at you for a
Yeah.
recommended motion.
I'm defaulting to the attorney,
so.
so.
Staff to prepare any documents necessary to vacate the reservation.
So moved.
Second.
Well,
Sure it is.
fair enough.
There you go.
No, it's necessary action. Oh, it was? Yeah.
And frankly, based on your motion, what I will probably do is just call the title company and make sure that whatever we do meets title standards, because whoever
Mhm.
sells lots adjoining this, we don't wanna call it title.
Yes,
Right.
and we don't want any legal,
Right.
harassment.
And I appreciate what the surveyors, yeah, do legal for it. You don't want any problems down the road, and while
Right.
lawyers and surveyors know a lot of things, the title company at the end of the day makes these decisions, so we wanna make sure that they insure all of it.
If there's any issues, bring it back, but other than that, I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
this
we should be
is,
fine.
this is pretty cut and dry. Any other discussion on this item?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Ding, 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 ding.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch.
Danetta.
All right, so now we're gonna move back here under item 5, new business.
Thank you.
D, discussion necessary action on ordinance 19-19, ordinance amending chapter 11, section 27 of the town zoning code related to the B4 commercial special use zoning district and recommendation of the town board of the same.
These were ordinances that were prepared by Mr. Hammond. We've had some conversation with Dale Shaver and staff on these ordinances. In regard to the one for B4, section 27, I apologize, I got the wrong one out. I would suggest to the planning commission that approve this with 2 Scrivener modifications. So one would be, and this thing was typed up for whatever reason, the list of permitted uses was missed. And then I looked at it to verify, so that would just need to be reinserted, which is the Scrivener's error. And reinstitute the design standards. When we spoke to Dale Shaver about the joint planning areas, Mr. Shaver suggested to us that we include back in, you jump here if I get this wrong, the design standards as a recommendation only by JPC. Because,
Okay. County's on board with this though, and
yes, and that was, with that addition, Dale was on board. Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Dan?
Maintaining the design standards that were already there, the town could be the approving authority through those design standards, but JPC would be the recommending body as a result of these changes.
discussion? Any questions from the plan commission on this?
Nope.
Nope. Sounds legally cut and dry.
Well, move that we approve ordinance 19-19, an ordinance amending chapter 11, section 27 of the town zoning code related to the B4 commercial special use district and recommendation of the town board, contingent on the attorney's.
The scrivener errors being re-added.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Second. Mark got it.
Any discussion?
No.
Can you forward me those changes? And then, or do you,
Could
are you just
change.
gonna change the document before it goes to?
We'll probably do it internally, do that thing.
Not going for a record.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item E, discussion necessary action on ordinance 20-19, an ordinance amending chapter 11, section 28 of the town zoning code related to the BP Industrial Business Park Special Use Zoning District, and recommendation of the town board of the same.
Again, the only thing that Dan and I have touched on today is under the design standards, we'd like to re-add into the language as suggested by Dale Shaver, that the design standards be approved by the JPC only as a recommended method.
Discussion at the board, anything?
None.
Move that we approve ordinance 20-19, ordinance amending chapter 11, section 28 of the town zoning code related to the BP Industrial Business Park Special Use Zoning District, and recommend to the town board with the attorney's comments. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item F, discussion necessary action on ordinance 18-19 and ordinance readopting ordinance 01-18 related to plan unit developments as an overlay district and recommendation of the town board of the same.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is kind of back before you for more or less some clarifications from Waukesha County. When we had sent it to the town board and from the Plan Commission, we had used track changes formatting, and as a result of that, when the final document was proposed, there should have been actual strike-throughs versus when it's in track changes, it's deleted. And so there was a couple of things that the Waukesha County needed some clarification on, and instead of coming back through each individual piece and kind of doing ordinance by those ones, it was just reestablished those pieces. And so Dan worked with Sandy over at Waukesha County to make those requested changes and more or less just a cleanup clarification.
Questions from the board?
No longer making those in track changes format when it actually needs to show strike-throughs.
Move that we approve ordinance 18-19. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. What did I do on the last page? Item 7, town and planner report. The October-November planner appointments.
So we have October and one from this month. So I think I may have touched on it, but H&H Auto was looking at doing a CSM to do some reconfiguration of their lot. That would require or result in ultimately the Realm Trucking site being sold, that property being sold off, and as a result of that, then they would have to come in for a site plan of operation amendment for a new owner of their site. But from an overall standpoint, they're looking at taking that whole site, splitting it into two. The barracks, that's that multifamily project, came in to talk about property improvements and potential expansions. Pretty much the end result of that conversation was expansion no. They are a non-conforming use, and so they can make improvements within the non-conforming status of our zoning code. Frank Gross tonight, who you saw about his CSM. He's been working on that for a while, but he came back in for a planner appointment on the 22nd. Then we also had talked a fairly long time about this Walnut Road land division. This one is quite complex, and I can speak to anybody individually if you want to get more into this one. But overall, the standpoint is we're not quite sure how a property got combined when it probably shouldn't have been combined. As a result of it, now they're in upland corridor. Can't split off a piece of their property, can't develop a piece of their property. Back in the 90s, something happened, and so we're starting to dig into the feasibility of them splitting off a piece of their property.
James, let me think about that for a second.
Yeah.
I feel to tell you. Look at
We-
you're gonna know, aren't you?
It's over by the ski club. I don't know if you guys know, kind of that.
You're Osborne?
Yeah, that area. It was built in the 80s and 90s, and as a result, one individual purchased a bunch of properties and ultimately combined them for street assessment purposes, but ultimately were combined from tax parcel purposes, and now that's causing some issues. So they're trying to figure out, was it legally combined?
If there was no CSM combining, just because it was combined for tax purposes, those are two standalone lots.
And
And
there's
if you
actually
need
10
me-
lots.
Well, if you need me to help you with that, let me know.
Yeah, there are 10 small lots that were all about 20,000 square feet?
Around that,
Yeah, so they all combined into one, so. And then the last one was Hallquist Stone came in today, and that's their facility that they did a construction building about 2 years ago that you guys approved, that kind of cold storage, slab storage that was going on in there. They've brought Keller Construction in to actually bridge the two buildings now. So there's about a gap between, kind of a passage gap between the two. They're utilizing that, would like to utilize that space for additional storage because their storage now is kind of filtering into their operation space. So they're trying to figure out a way. And so in essence, that passway between the two buildings would become same material doors, overhead doors, same material for construction, and more or less enclose that space. The large majority of that one, from a standpoint of land use, is pretty much would be cut and dry. It's the fire situation that they'll be working with that person on. So, but they will come back here for a site plan and walk shutdown. So that's my quick summary of those planner appointments.
Any questions?
My only other thought then is talking about the planner workshop.
We're gonna have to move that.
So I don't know if you guys wanna keep that under my kind of planner appointments, but our planning workshop is potentially gonna have to be moved as a result of our Lisbon-Merton boundary agreement, public hearing, so. So we'll need to find another date.
Potentially January could be a slow month, because we haven't really had that many applications come in. We do possibly have some for December, but we could possibly do it.
Really look forward to that month.
Yeah, and now that I said something.
Well, I will say that I did have a conversation with Steve DeClean. Hillside Development should be coming in the next, submittal to us in the next 45 days for a redesign of their whole plat. So.
Did they buy that property in Berlin?
No.
No?
Never mind.
Nope.
My opinion, jeez.
All right, well, get some dates together and
Yep.
we'll figure it out.
Put some dates together.
Oh, well.
Item 8, any requests from members to request items on future agendas? Item 9, adjournment.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out at 9:43.
Already?
You're 4 minutes off.